Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to welcome you today. We have an amazing set of entrepreneurs joining us today, and first a panel, and then you'll be doing one-on-one interactions, able to ask questions. There's entrepreneurs here today that are from industries as diverse as ice cream, hair products, coding education, digital media, software, and more. I was going to just spend 2 minutes telling you a little bit about myself and how it is that I ended up writing a book, Girls Who Run the World, which is a set of profiles of 31 female entrepreneurs. And I am a journalist. I've written for newspapers and magazines for a long time in San Francisco. And this is my first book. It all began one day when I was walking home from work and I was listening to a podcast, which is my favorite. And if you don't know it, you should check it out. It's called How I Built This. And it's amazing entrepreneurial journey stories. And I was listening to a woman named Sarah Blakely, who founded a huge company called Spanx. And she became the youngest self-made female billionaire in America. And her whole company began, she was selling fax machines door to door. And she cut off the bottom of her pantyhose because she was roasting hot, wearing them under her jeans on a hot Atlanta day. And everything that she did was completely self-made. When she couldn't afford a lawyer, she wrote her own patent. She cold called her way to get into Neiman Marcus. And when she went in and saw her product in store for the first time, it was hidden way in the back, kind of collecting dust. And she knew no one was going to buy it there. So she went to the elevator, went out to Target. She bought a cardboard rack and she snuck it back inside in her coat. And she set that rack up right at the register. And she moved all her boxes there at the front. And as I listened to her tell the story, I was just so struck by this woman who didn't take no for an answer. She just got started when she had an idea. She didn't ask permission. Sometimes she had to fake it till she made it. And I was just thinking about, teen daughters, which I have, and just teens in general, and how these are kind of all the lessons that they need to know. So that was my inspiration was, let's tell these stories. We read so many books in school when we're young about pioneering people like Rosa Parks or Marie Curie, Amelia Earhart, but no one's telling the pioneering stories of, today's new heroes. And so some of those we're going to hear from today. So maybe we should just get on it and get to our panel. We're going to meet Samantha John and Robin Sue Fisher, Devin and Sahar Sahidi. And I guess probably the first thing is for each of you guys to just quickly tell all of us, what is it that you're doing? What is your company about? You want to start, Robin?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Sue Fisher. I'm the founder and chief barista of Smitten Ice Cream. And what we do at Smitten is we churn every single batch of ice cream fresh, often to order. We have 5, soon to be 6 retail stores, a national shipping platform, and some new bike delivery vehicles in San Francisco. So, and I started the company pulling a wagon around the streets of San Francisco, selling ice cream, kind of rogue in the parks and alleys of the city. And I was pulling around a wagon with my prototype machine that I invented on top. And proud to say that we now have 6 patents on that machine.
Sahar?
Hey, I'm Sahar. I'm the founder of Lust Brands, and that stands for Love Yourself. And we make products for curly hair. As you can see, I have a mane full of curls that I grew up hating, got teased for it, got called every name in the book, Curly Sue, Sideshow Bob, chia pet, you name it. I was teased growing up. Literally hated it and did everything to straighten it and change it and make it look normal so I could fit in. And then after 20 years buying a bunch of products on the market and, not finding anything that really worked and not finding anything that just made my hair care simple, I decided to go out there and create my own products and put out positive messaging and telling people to love themselves and the fact that, hey, your hair is already natural, beautiful. And if you're going to use your products, you should just find something that makes your life simple. And that's how we started. And we're one of the fastest growing companies in North America. So growing super, super fast. And we've shipped over 2 million bottles of our products to over 500,000 customers all over the world. And it's been 3.5 years. So nice to meet you all.
Very exciting. How about you, Samantha?
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha. I'm the co-founder of Hopscotch, which is a coding app for kids like you. With Hopscotch, you can download it on your iPhone and iPad, and you learn to code and then make games and then share them with your friends in our community of kids on the app. And eventually, something we're releasing soon is you will be able to become an entrepreneur in your own right on Hopscotch by selling things in your game. We launched Hopscotch in 2013, and since then we've had over 23 million downloads. So tons and tons of kids have learned to code on Hopscotch, and really happy to be here meeting all of you awesome folks.
Devin?
Hey, my name is Devin Lars. I am the CEO and founder of Curio. It's a full service advertising agency where we help our clients connect with their audience on and offline. I started my business when I was a senior in high school. It was in 2005. I started off airbrushing t-shirts around my community and for my school and some of my friends. Then it evolved into a screen printing company that we started out of our garage, kind of really just basically bootstrapping it. We went down to Home Depot and we built our first screen printing press out of wooden clamps and used my grandfather's fireplace to dry the first run of t-shirts. So really just kind of getting creative in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit. Now we run a full service advertising agency. It kind of developed into that. We work with some of the biggest brands from Nike, Tesla, the Warriors. We just recently did a collaboration with Starbucks where we did over 250,000 shirts for every single employee in the US and Canada. So it was a really cool project. And yeah, super excited to be here, guys, and talk to you about my story and see how we can help.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to quick run through and make sure everyone at least answers one question. So Robin, I've always been really fascinated by the story of your burr machine and that image of you down in the basement kind of building that machine. Tell us that story because it's pretty incredible. Her business really began out of a bunch of pieces of metal she was putting together.
Yeah, so unfortunately, and I guess fortunately, it took over 2 years before I could sell an ice cream because a lot of the origin of the idea of Smitten was all about making ice cream fresh, because I was really bothered that this idyllic, wholesome product and one of our most nostalgic, beloved childhood images of ourselves eating ice cream is actually one of the most contaminated products on the market because it's so focused on shelf life and preservation. And so I just felt like that was messed up. So a lot of my idea was why don't we figure out how to make ice cream fresh, just like a coffee, people have figured that out. And so I basically finagled my way into convincing a very bright retired engineer to work with me in his basement for 2 years, which we didn't think it would take 2 years. By the way, I thought it would be maybe 6-8 months. Good optimism of an entrepreneur. And it took 2 years to get a machine that worked. And it was way more complicated than I thought it was. I wanted to give a shout out about writing your own patents because I wrote all of my patents originally. And it honestly helped me learn so much about the inner workings of the machine and why it was different and why it was novel. and all the intricacies. And I am not an engineer. I'm just a wannabe engineer, but I really learned how to build things. I learned how to weld, and I learned how to Dremel, which I didn't even know what dremeling was. I really helped to invent and build this machine that is now the centerpiece of my business. And after the 2 years, we had a prototype. I strapped that prototype with a bungee cord onto a radio flyer wagon. I had the budget of $300 to test my concept, and so the wagon had to do with a bungee cord. And then I just used Twitter from there on to get the word out. Hey, I'm making churn to order ice cream. Come and try it. And it was just me on the streets for a while. And then since that day, we've now brought our machine through regulatory testing. We've gotten to like iteration number 7. It's like a totally bomb bulletproof machine now that costs like 10 grand, which is insane given how it started. But it really proved to me that if you have a passion and a will, then you can convince the world that you're an engineer even if you're not. So it really was a monumental process for me.
So cool. Sahar, her $300 kind of reminds me of the beginning of your business, which you bootstrapped with very little money. So how did you, I imagine the people who are listening today, they wonder how they would ever get the capital together to be able to get something started, but maybe you don't really need to. So how did you do that?
Well, I had more than $300. Robin, I don't know how you did that. That's pretty incredible. But I had a really hard time fundraising, and I was hearing about all these cool startups in the Valley that were going out and raising millions of dollars. And, at the beginning, no one thought that a shampoo company would make it, let alone become huge and profitable. So traditional investors weren't giving me money, and I knocked on a lot of doors. I finally got a local bank. The bank rejected me, but the account manager kind of called me up afterwards, and he said, I believe in your vision, and take this other path and apply to this other entrepreneurship program. And if they approve you, the bank has to approve you. So he really helped me out. And then I used personal debt. I pretty much pulled money from a credit line that I had, and I lived off of my debt. And I just started the company that way. So I bootstrapped. By the time I took in any outside funding, I had already done $1 million in sales. We were already profitable. And then I took in money from investors just really to find advisors. So the investors that I took in really early on in my company, I didn't even need their money. I just wanted their brains and their expertise and their connections. So I self-funded and bootstrapped the company as well.
And just really quickly, how did you figure out, it's the beginning of the company and you want to control your hair? How do you even figure out where to begin? What's the ingredients to use, and what do you do?
I honestly opened up my laptop and I Googled how to start a hair care brand. And I did a ton of research that way. And then I started looking up who the top cosmetic chemists were across North America. And I went to the store and I bought a bunch of products that I knew were really popular in the curly hair space. And I would hound these chemists and beg them for like a half hour of their time. And I would just go and see them and have them explain the products and ingredients and the chemistry behind the formulations to me. So I spoke with over 40 different cosmetic chemists. I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist. But the thing is, you can learn so much if you just talk to people who are experts and talk to a whole bunch of people that are experts. So I learned a lot just talking to cosmetic chemists and labs and learning, what formula makes the hair shiny, what makes it calm the frizz down, what penetrates the hair shaft, and what part of those product labels are just marketing fluff, and really wanted to strip away the fluff and make real formulations that work. So, and then I would test the formulations on my own head of hair. I have a lot of hair, so I would test 4 different formulas at a time on my hair, and then use my friends and family as guinea pigs. And that's how it all started.
I recommend to you guys to go on and Google Sahar and look at these videos she makes where she actually shows you how to put the product in her hair, because they're mesmerizing. It's incredible. Okay, Samantha, when we met for the first time, you told the story of being a student at Columbia and not even being someone who knew anything about coding or liking coding. So how did you get into coding?
So even before I was a student at Columbia, all through my childhood, I never thought I was a computer person. Also, side note, both of you have just said how you're not a scientist, you're not an engineer, though you clearly are a scientist and an engineer if you made these amazing products. Like, what else could qualify you? I'm so impressed.
If you can get me a scientist degree, Samantha, from a university, I'll happily take that.
So for me, I wasn't interested in computers, didn't think that was something for me. And it seemed like something for boys, something for my brother. And in college, I was really into photography. And I took this class on computational photography, which turned out to be a computer science class, more than a photography class. And the final project for that class was you got to make any kind of computational photography idea you could come up with. And what I did was took all these pictures that my classmates had submitted for our kind of final end of year senior banquet, where they were pictures from our whole class throughout all of college. And I made photo mosaics of scenes around our university and around our campus, where it's one large image that's made up of all these little tiny images of the students in our class. And then I actually was able to show that at our senior dinner and show it off to my classmates, and they really loved it. And it just felt so meaningful and cool. And I had this revelation where I was like, no one told me that's what programming was, or like that's what computer science was. That wasn't what I envisioned at all. This is so fun. It's so creative. It's so much more meaningful than anything else I've done in school. And like, why didn't anyone tell me? So a couple of years later, when I was ready to start Hopscotch, that was really a big part of our mission. Like, let's make sure we actually tell people how cool programming can be and what kind of amazing things you can make.
And can you just explain a little bit about how does Hopscotch work in terms of like you use images and it's...
Of course. Yeah, so Hopscotch is a programming environment that you can use on your iPhone and iPad, and it's all drag and drop. You code by choosing different characters and avatars, and then dragging and dropping code that will make them interact with each other. And you start off really simple, and then kids will make these really amazing, fantastic games that really kind of rival anything you see on the App Store. The quality that we see is really incredible. So even if you're not quite ready to learn to code, it's actually just really fun to download Hopscotch and start playing the games that kids have made.
Devin, I'm going to ask you two different questions. So the first one, like I shouldn't ask because this is just like the glam, which is that you get to work with Nike, let's say. And you've probably built up for a long time in order to be able to do that. But will you just tell us a little bit about how did it come to be that you got to work with Nike and what are you doing with them? Because that's just cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very interesting in terms of when you have an idea of what you want to do. So back in 2015, we had started, we've been in business since 2005. And I remember it was when the Warriors started to win and they started to do arena takeovers where they had every single fan got a t-shirt at Oracle Arena. And I remember sitting at home watching these games and I was like, one day we're going to be doing that. And I had no connections with Nike, no connections with the Warriors, no connections at all. But I just remember, I didn't care the details of how I was going to get there. I just knew that we were going to get there and we would figure it out along the way, right? I think that's entrepreneurship. You have a goal in mind and it's just like, don't worry about the details. The details will work itself out as long as you continue and have that bigger goal. And so it was kind of strange how it started. Essentially we were doing a lot of work for the radio station. So for KMEL, Wild 94.9, all the different radio stations. So we printed all the stuff for Summer Jam, all the different events, and we built a really good relationship with them. And it was kind of a working trade, right? We didn't get paid for the shirts. We printed the shirts for them. They gave us advertisements around for the concerts and things of that nature. And we just knew it was a good relationship to have. And so we had been working with them, I want to say started around 2012. And so 2016, when they went back to the playoffs, I got a call from one of the guys that works at the radio station and says that his brother works for an agency in LA and they needed to get some shirts done for the Warriors. And I was like, of course, yeah, let's do it. And it was like literally 5,000, I think it was like 5,000 to 7,000 shirts, and they needed it. They were dropping it off Thursday night and they needed it by Friday. And so we stayed up all night. We printed the shirts and delivered it to the guy's brother. And so we ended up meeting the team and the agency that was working with the client at the time. It was Nike, but we didn't know that. We really didn't understand how agencies and stuff worked. And so I think the number one thing is always providing value. If you can take anything from this story, it's always providing value. So what I did was I told the agency, they were going out and passing out shirts around the Bay Area. And I said, hey, I could bring my team to come and help pass out the shirts. We can move boxes. We can do whatever you want. You don't have to pay us. We just want to be around because it was something that was a really cool project. And so we ended up meeting up with them. We started helping out, passing out shirts, folding stuff. And we started talking to the guys that were a part of the agency, some random guys that were coming up and kind of talking to us, and we didn't know who they were at the time. And they were like, oh, did you guys print the shirts? And I said, yeah. And one of the guys introduced himself, and he worked for Nike, and he gave me his card. And so Nike was the client of this agency. And he said, look, we don't have a partner in the Bay Area that we work with. Maybe we can get you set up as a preferred vendor. So I was like, all right, perfect. So I'm thinking that was just, we won. And it didn't happen like that, right? I emailed him after that day, no response. I literally emailed him for like almost a year straight and didn't even get a response, but I was persistent and patient and just, hey, can we get on the phone? Can we talk? And then long story short, a project happened where they needed like 40 shirts for a game. Last minute, their vendor in LA didn't come through. We delivered for them. And then it was like 2 other events like that where it was super small projects that like probably vendors would want the bigger projects. And we wanted, of course, the bigger project. And we just wanted to provide value, make sure that we always delivered for them. And then it got to a point where we just kept delivering, and they got us set up in their system as a preferred vendor. And then for, I want to say in 2019, when they played the Lakers, they did a nationwide campaign for Black History Month, and they reached out to us, and we ended up doing 25,000 shirts for every single person in Oracle Arena. And so I was able to go there and go into the arena and see all the shirts that we printed on all the seats. And it was just such a crazy experience to go from 2015. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know the details, to 2019, seeing all of our products in the arena. It was pretty crazy.
I think your message, though, that you got to be patient is important.
Patience is everything.
Yeah. Robin, and I could ask any of you guys this question, and maybe we'll have time for a few more people to answer it. I imagine when you started going around and talking to people about this machine you were going to build, and you were going to make ice cream using liquid nitrogen, people looked at you like you were nuts. And so I'm curious, how do you handle sort of the disbelievers and the skeptics and still kind of hold on to this idea when people are looking at you like you don't know what you're doing?
Yes, I definitely had a lot of those looks. I think for me, it's a lot of looking inward and knowing that 2 things. One, in order for me to be like a happy person, I need to try the things that that scare me and take risks. And that's because I really believe that regrets are worse than failure. And the like what if, the lingering what if would torment me forever. But if I tried it and I failed, I could get over it. I'd have like a scar on my knee that I could be proud of and kind of like move on. So I didn't really care that much what other people think. I just knew that if I didn't try, I'd look back and regret it. And so that allowed me to power through. And I think the belief that failure is worse than regret allowed me to like take pretty big risks, because I really was like, if I'm going to fail quickly and flat on my face. And it's going to be so obvious that it'll make me move on. And if not, then like, I'm going to still try. So I kind of just like set myself up to go for it. And that mentality, I think, is what powered me through.
Sahar, was there a moment when your business kind of took off? Like, how did you go from just being a small upstart to becoming like one of the fastest growing brands in America?
Yeah, so I was really lucky to meet an incredible Facebook marketer on Upwork. And Upwork is, if you guys haven't heard of it, it's a great platform. You can freelance, like whatever your skill is, you can sell your skill set on Upwork to companies around the world, big and small, that are hiring freelancers. So I met someone that had self-taught herself how to do Facebook marketing and hired her. She had a very small budget of $1,000 a month. And I told her, hey, we don't have a lot of money, you know, don't lose our money. And she's been with the company from the beginning, so almost 4 years now, and she's now our director of sales and marketing. She actually moved here. I'm based in Toronto, Canada. She was based in Ohio, so we got her a work permit, moved her up here to Toronto, and she's built a full in-house sales and marketing team. So her and I, you know, worked on a lot of the creative, a lot of the video, really just did the advertising ourselves and did everything in-house. And so yeah, I think our advertising and having the right brand and creative and the right message, really month after month, we started to see our sales come up. And that started about 6 months after launching the company.
Mm. Samantha, I want the same question for you, because how did you get to 23 million downloads? That's amazing. Was there like a moment, or was it a slow build? Did you have any like viral incident, or what happened?
So for hopscotch, I mean, I think my story has some of the same flavor as Robin's, in that we, you know, I left my job in February of 2012 to start hopscotch, and I had been working on it on the side with my co-founder for about 5 months before that, since 2011. And we spent about almost a year and a half before we actually launched. So there was this very long period of starting a company and having nothing to show for it, which is hard to, it is very psychologically hard to do that when everyone's like, what is your company? Like, what, you don't have a product? Like, what is this? And I think something that was really helpful for me during that time was having a co-founder and having someone else who, and knowing at least that there was one other person who was as crazy as me and believed in this, I think really got me through some times. But the advantage of that was that we were able to spend a lot of time before we launched, kind of building up a buzz around hopscotch and talking to teachers, engaging with people online. When we launched, we were actually the first programming language designed for the iPad. And we were able to use that to get a lot of press. And we got, I think we got 20,000 downloads in our first week, and just kind of continued to grow from there. I would say the other big moment for us was about a year later, we launched the community. So when we first launched Hopscotch, it was just a platform to code on your own. But then a year later, we let you share the games that you made with other kids. And that was actually very transformative, because then kids could interact with each other. They had an audience for their games. They could get inspired by other kids' games and kind of understand what was possible in hopscotch. And I'd say those were kind of the two most important aspects.
Devin, I'm going to just, you have to answer this quick, because then we got to go to the breakout sessions. But I just want to, you said you stayed persistent writing to this guy at Nike for like over a year. And I'm often in the position where I'm not sure, when am I being a pain in the neck and bugging people, and when am I just being like persistent in the good way? So can you explain like what the difference of those two things is in your mind?
Well, in my mind, it was more so of, he gave me his card and he initiated the conversation, and he just didn't respond. Like, he didn't even say, okay, thanks. So I didn't know if it was going to spam. So in my mind with that, I said, I'm going to keep emailing him until I get some sort of response, because he gave me the card. And I remember the lady from the agency that worked with him kind of got annoyed that he didn't respond to me. And I said, don't worry, like, when it's time and he needs me, I'll be there to be able to deliver. And so I think it's just a matter of, you know, just kind of going off of gut intuition, kind of filling it out and seeing if you're being annoying. But I just know he initiated it, gave me his card, and I was just gonna email him until I got a response. So I would email him like maybe once a month or once every other month, a couple weeks, and hey, I'm in LA, would love to have coffee. Nothing, just silence. And then all of a sudden one day I got a call. It wasn't even an email. I got a call, and he said, hey, Deb, leave it up to Nike to call at 6 o'clock on Friday, but we need something done. I said, let's do it. And they were just impressed with our service of just always delivering and always saying yes, no matter how crazy the ask was.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like that kind of comes from being a confident, like starting with a confident stance, which is like, if he needs me, he'll get to me, and then I'll deliver. So very
Yeah,
cool.
I feel that everything happens for a reason, and it's just like you do it, just put your best foot forward, focus on your seed and planting your seed like in nature, in the garden, and the God, universe, whatever you want to call it, will do the rest. And so that's kind of how I look at it, just focus on what I can control.
Very
Also,
cool.
I think being a startup, it's like your company barely exists and you just have to keep reminding people that it exists.
Yeah, exactly.
And you need to really believe that it exists and just keep reminding people, and then eventually they'll believe it too.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. I'm sad we have to go to the breakouts because this is super awesome, but people can continue asking you guys questions. Thank you so much for all of that. And now people can ask one-on-one, and you guys can ask whatever you want to know from these wonderful entrepreneurs.
Any really store that sells hair care products, there are so many on the market. So it was really hard for me to get funding, but I just knocked on a lot of doors and I told people my story until finally someone believed it. And then, like I said, I put myself in debt to start the company. And then besides the fundraising, I think it's, at every stage of your company, as you grow, you have different challenges. So now we have close to 40 employees, and we're dealing with COVID. You guys can tell I'm in my office today. So because we're building a physical product, it's not like a service or a software. We have to all physically be in office together. So socially distancing, making sure everyone's safe, making sure our goods are still being manufactured and they're being shipped out on time. So there's a lot of challenges, especially this year in dealing with COVID. Good question. Anyone else? You guys want to tell me about your businesses, your companies, any questions you have? You're welcome. I've got the chat open. So like Leah said, if you guys don't want to unmute and talk, that's fine. You guys can definitely type it in and I'll answer the questions that come in on chat.
So maybe while our students are thinking about some questions to ask you, I have one for you. What's the most successful product that you have in your line, and what does it do?
Yeah, so it's an all-in-one. I actually have it right here. This is our all-in-one styling product. You guys see it? So it's customized for different hair types, for people that have wavy hair, curly hair like mine, and then super tight, kinky, coily hair. And it's basically meant to replace your leave-in conditioner, your gel, your mousse, your finishing serum. It's 3 to 5 different products in one. And when you apply it in your hair, it just calms the frizz and makes your hair movable and soft. And I can kind of get away with washing my hair once every 3-4 days or 5 days, and then spritzing a bit of the same product in the morning on my hair, and it just looks like this, and I can move on with my day. So that's our best-selling product.
That's great. I wish I could go that long without washing my hair.
Yeah, it's been great.
Where do you sell your products?
So we only sell them online through our own website. We are 100% what's called DTC, direct to consumer. So if you go on lustbrands.com, we ship all over the world, but most of our customers are actually in the US. So I'm based in Canada. The products are made in Canada, but over 90% of our customers are based in the US. So yeah, good questions.
So I think we have a couple more questions coming in here.
Has anyone doubted you? Yes, of course. Everyone's doubted me. I think everyone except my mother and my father. No, my father doubted me too. So I think everybody except my mother doubted me when I started this company. And the ones that believed in our company, I think they thought, it's going to be a little side business, a little hustle. And Our company is valued at over $200 million today. So I've built a multi-million-dollar global company in less than 4 years. No one ever thought that would happen. Like not even in my own circle of friends and family, nobody thought that would happen. That's for sure. Did we design the labels and logo, or did we have a specific person for those things? So I didn't personally design the labels and logos, but I was very, very closely involved. I hired a designer that was actually based in the US. So that's our Love Your Curls logo, and then the Lust brands on top, and the labels. And we have, hold on a second. So we've got a black label line as well. That's our deep conditioner and repair formulas. So we have, we've got a team of in-house designers now. At the beginning, it was just one person. Now we have 3 designers that work on everything that you see on our social media channels. If you go on Instagram at Lust Brands, all the creative, all the graphics, all the videos, we do all of that in-house now. Keep them coming, guys. Yeah, tell me about your companies though. Do you guys have ideas? Do you have, because for me at the beginning, I just knew I wanted to simplify curly hair care and I didn't really know where to start. So what are you guys thinking as far as a business goes, or do you not know yet? Like what area are you guys thinking of building businesses in? You guys are all shy. Unmute. Nope. Okay.
So hi, I'm Cece, and I'm part of the teaching team at San Francisco Unified. And so one question I have, which is I think always comes up for students, is like, so you said you just wanted to think about redefining like how you can support folks with curly hair. But for folks that are like maybe they're passionate about one thing, like how did you go from like I want to do something about hair to like having a whole line? You could have come up with like a tool or something to make it easier to style. So like, how did you land on like doing a product line?
Yeah, I think for me, it was because I'd spent my whole life buying products that didn't work. So what was broken for me was the product portion of it. So it really depends what you see as the broken piece of the puzzle. And for me, it was the products. I'm sure, if you took 10 different people, they would approach it differently, but it really comes down to a personal belief. And, in order for you to start a company, you got to be super passionate about it, but you also have to have strong belief because it's really hard at the beginning. I mean, I was working 12 to 18-hour days sitting at my dining room table by myself for over a year before I even launched the company, just building the website and just figuring everything out. So if you don't actually believe you're solving an important problem, at some point you're going to give up. And I think that's the most important thing is your business solving a big problem? And it doesn't have to, like, you don't have to start a company that's necessarily solving a big problem. You might just say, yeah, there's all these other companies doing this, but they're not doing it as well as I'm going to do it. And here's how I'm going to make it better. So there's got to be just something that keeps you going because it's a lot of work being an entrepreneur.
I would agree with,
yeah.
I was just going to say, I was going to agree with the point that you made about doing something that you're passionate about. And that's part of what we're trying to teach our students is to figure out what you're good at and what your skills are, and then go from there, because it's going to be different from the person sitting next to you. So
yeah, and I mean, my mom's a nurse, my dad, back home, I mean, we're a family of immigrants. We moved to Canada 30 years ago, but my parents always thought you're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to university, you're going to get a good job, and that's it. And at the beginning when I was younger and I decided to kind of go down this entrepreneurship path and do my own thing, my mom, she kicked me out. She was like, no, you're not living here if you're not going to be going to school. And I went back to school in my 30s. I actually got my master's. So I got 2 master's degrees, and that was kind of just really to prove it to my mom. And then I went back to entrepreneurship. So I think when it's in you, when it's in your blood, and when you're just like, I know this is what I'm meant to be, even if you wait until your 30s, you're going to go back to, what you're meant to do. So, all right. So someone asked, did any product of yours ever not sell too well? And if they didn't, what did you change? That's a great question. We have a very limited SKU count. So whereas a lot of hair care companies have, 30, 40, 50 products, I started out with a 3-step system. customized for different hair types. So that was 5 products. And then last year I added 3 other products. And my market research is really going live on our Instagram and Facebook page, where we have hundreds of thousands of followers, especially on Facebook. And I asked our customers, hey, what products do you guys want me to make? Like, what do you love about deep conditioners? What do you need? What's different? What's lacking? So by the time I make a product and I put it to market, I'm very sure that it's going to do well. Some of our accessory items, like last year we launched it was called a holiday, like a gift box. And it was a box that contained our minis, like our travel size options of our hair products. And it had like a comb, a towel, a pouch. That one didn't move so well. So eventually we ended up dropping the price, running a lot of promos just to get rid of the inventory. And then we obviously didn't make any more. So it happens. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to take risks. We've made stuff in the past that we just ended up giving away as promotional items and gifts. But for sure, you know, when you're investing a lot of money making stuff, you have to be sure that your customers are going to love it. Someone else asked, what is my degree? And I have a degree in business. So I have an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. And Casey, that's so cool. You're using social media to help you. Yeah, I think it's been huge for us. How else is social media helping you make decisions for your business? All day, every day. I mean, we're a social media brand. We built our company on Facebook and Instagram. So, you know, we listen, we ask questions in our posts. We ask our followers and our customers tons of questions all the time. We inform them. We read and respond to every single comment. And some of our posts have thousands of comments. And if you go on there, we have a customer service team of 9 people. These are 9 women with curly hair all over the world, and they respond to every single PM, DM, post comment. So social media has been huge for us building our business. How long does it usually take you to come up with a product and release it? That's a great idea. Great question. So from the time I have an idea to the time we go to market with a product is usually a year, because that involves a ton of desktop research that I initially do, comparing it to different products on the market, ingredient research, and then working with the labs and creating formulations and going back and forth, stability testing. Once you've nailed the formulation, that takes 3 months. So from start to finish, it's at least a year. It's a long process to come up with new products. Justin, do you consider yourself an inventor of your product? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I worked with cosmetic chemists. Like I said earlier, I'm not a chemist. I couldn't, if you put me in a lab and said, hey, create something, I can't do it. But the ideas, the initial research, all of that comes from me. And I think that's kind of eye-opening for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that you don't have to be the expert in what you want to do. As long as you have the idea and you're willing to work on it and do the research, then you can find experts and partner with them to actually build your product for you. Like, you don't have to become a scientist in order to build a product that's based on science. So I think the idea and the innovation has to come from you, and then you find people that are experts in their fields to help you actually build your product. And that's been really cool. Okay, risks. Yes, so some students are risk averse. How do you work on this skill so you can be innovative in this field? That's a very, very good question. I think as an entrepreneur, they always say entrepreneurs are crazy, and we are a little crazy in order for us to do, to do what we do. And I think you never ever really quite get comfortable with risk. Like, I always have butterflies in my stomach every time I'm doing something that I know involves risk. But I also like the element of risk. Like, I can't have a normal, ordinary job. I would be bored out of my mind. So I think it's that high that you get on, okay, this is going to be a risk, but if I win, it's going to be huge. And that was the whole thing about starting this company was, I was either going to be wealthy and I was either going to be rich, or I was going to be bankrupt, and nothing in between. So I went all in on this company, and, I wanted to build wealth. I wanted to be rich, and I wanted to do that or nothing. So that was the risk.
Welcome, Samantha. Thank you
Hi
for
there.
being here today. Hi, I'm Leah Rodriguez, Impact and Program Manager with Junior Achievement.
Oh, great to meet you.
You as well.
How's it going, everyone? How many of you are on camera? Not very many. Does anyone who's not on camera have the ability to come on camera and desire to do so? Just to make it a little bit more fun. Ceci, thank you for being here in person. We were just talking, hi there. Hi, Ashley. Yeah, we were in my last group, we were talking about how lame it seems to just be on Zoom calls with no camera all day and just having a teacher talk at you. I think it's much more fun to be able to have an actual conversation if you can. Did everyone hear the first part of the conference where we kind of introduced ourselves, or should I introduce myself again? Would that be helpful? Okay. So I'm Samantha John. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hopscotch, which is a coding language for kids. What that means is you can use our app on your iPad or iPhone and learn to code using our visual drag and drop programming language. And then once you've started to learn to code, you can actually make games and apps that you can share with other kids in our community. It's been around since 2013. Hi there, Kelly. And we've had over 23 million downloads since then. It's used by kids ages 8 to 16. So I think a lot of you guys would kind of be in the right age group for it, and I encourage you to check it out. And ask me any questions that you have about. Hi there. I don't see your name, but a new person. Welcome. Any questions you have about entrepreneurship, or I'm curious, are people here thinking like they want to start their own, you guys want to start your own company someday, or are you just kind of interested to see what people have to say? What are people interested in? What? I'm just gonna call on someone then. Ceci, what made you decide to come to this conference?
Yeah, so I'm a teacher with SFU.
Oh, you're a teacher.
That's why I'm here, but I'm really excited. Something I'm really interested in, we were just talking about this in our last breakout group, is sometimes, being an entrepreneur sounds really scary, right? Like sometimes having a job that's 9 to 5 and you always have a paycheck. That sounds like, for me, I'm like, maybe that's better, but that's not where you can make the really big bucks and also be really passionate about something. So I'm really curious. And you talked a little bit about that in the introduction, like, you left your job after like 5 years. 5 months. So like, tell us about how you kind of got over that risk and like went for it to launch your business.
The story of how I actually quit my job is kind of funny. And I had worked there for longer. I just started doing Hopscotch on the side about 5 months before then. And we took this, we called it a staycation, where me and my co-founder took all our vacation time and just took 2 weeks off of work. And instead of going on vacation, we worked on Hopscotch. And at the end of that 2 weeks, we were like, oh my gosh, we made so much progress. Like, this is so much better. You get to work on it all day and there's no other responsibilities. And I went back to work and I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I working on someone else's stupid project when I want to work on my own stupid project? And I actually quit my job that day when I came back. I remember my boss was out of town and I emailed him because I was so eager to leave and give my 2 weeks notice. And he was so mad at me. He was like, I can't believe you didn't tell me in person. But I was like, I'm sorry, it was time. So, I think for some advice that I give to people a lot is that, when you start a company, it is scary and I think rightfully so to not have like a lot of structure and stability. And it's a good idea to actually spend some time doing it in addition to the other things you're doing, and force yourself to have to make time for it. And that's hard. And so to get over that hump, you have to really like what you're doing and really care about your idea. And if you can get over that hump and do it enough where you're like, this is a good idea before you leave your job, I think that really helps. Because what I've seen with a lot of my friends who have decided to start companies is, they've left their job wanting to start something, and they just spend a lot of time figuring it out. And then often they end up just going and getting a job again, because it's actually just really stressful to be kind of, the clock is ticking and you don't know what you're going to work on and you're running out of money. I think the more you can solidify what you're going to do and why you care about it before you actually make that leap, the better off you'll be. From Hallie Bull, how long did the full start to finish process of making your company take? This is an interesting question. Hi, Vicky. This is an interesting question. Someone else asked me something kind of similar in the last group, and I think that's something that you get in school, is this idea that projects have a finish. Like, you start a project and then eventually that project is done, and that's kind of how school assignments tend to work. Like, you start something and then you eventually finish it. But a company and any big project, like, is kind of never really done. You make the first version of it, and then you make the second version of it, and then you just keep improving it. And you put it out there and it has all these things that aren't quite right.
People recognize that feeling that you have when you believe in something so deeply. It's hugely important. But one of the critical things about passion is really managing that. Some of the early lessons that I had to learn on my own was really developing an even keel way of being. Earlier on in my career, there were times when I thought that I was going to get a sale or something big was going to happen, and I would get so happy. I'd be so high, just, like, yeah. And then something or other might happen and it would not happen, and that would bring me down so low. And then the same thing happened on the other side. When I didn't get a sale, I would be so sad. And then all of a sudden something would happen that was better than what I just missed out on. And then all of a sudden I'm back to being really happy again. So that roller coaster of emotions is something that is really difficult to deal with, especially on a long-term basis. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to go through so many ups and downs. So in terms of managing that passion, what worked for me was the development of the ability to be even keel, right in the middle, not getting too high and not getting too low. If you can master that art, it's going to give you a lot more mileage on your engine. The other thing that's really important, and you probably heard this in the opening session, is persistence. My motto is, for every 100 no's, there is one yes. But the key to persistence is being pleasantly persistent. You don't want to be annoying. You don't want to be bothersome. So there definitely are ways that you can be pleasantly persistent. And this kind of segues into really the development of a personality that people want to be around. People buy from people that they like. And so it is critically important to really be a likable person and to be someone that is pleasant to be around. If you're not, and you don't have the next best thing since sliced bread, it's going to be hugely important. When I think about people that have been incredibly successful, I think about maybe Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Well, these three guys developed some of the most important companies that have ever been created. They were not necessarily nice people, but they could afford to not be nice because they had products that were so far ahead of where the marketplace was when they started their company. They could afford to. But the majority of us will not have that luxury. So you have to ensure that you develop yourself into someone that is jovial, pleasant, and nice to be around. Now, I'm not saying that you want to be so nice to be a walkover, because there is a balance, right? If you believe passionately about something and someone doesn't disagree with you, then you don't want to stand back. You know, you have to hold your ground. But ultimately, people will buy from people that they really like and enjoy being around. The fourth really important kind of critical component to successful entrepreneurialism is knowledge. So you're in school now. Many of you will go on to college, and some will go on to receive master's degrees and maybe even beyond. And that's great. Education is huge because it teaches you how to accomplish things to prepare you for life. Additionally, especially in today's day and age, very different from when I was your age, you're probably narrowing in on what you are passionate about and what really moves you.
Welcome, Sahar.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well, thank you. Take it away.
All right, so the last group was pretty quiet. I did a lot of the talking. Hopefully we've got some of you ready to unmute and ask me questions. And I'm happy to help you guys out, share a bit more about my journey, and answer any questions you guys have about starting your own businesses. Does anyone have any questions? And if you guys don't want to unmute, you can always just type them into the chat screen. I'll have the chat pulled up and I could just read out your questions as we go along.
Hi, Sahar. Did you have someone to share your, like, when you had that itch to start? Did you have someone to share this with?
Not really. I was on my own. I'm always jealous of the entrepreneurs who have business partners and co-founders. I didn't have that. I was on my own. So I started this company sitting, 12 to 18 hours a day at my dining room table for over a year, just working on products and, research and building the website and really trying to get it off the ground. So, no, it was just me.
I have a question.
Hi,
So
Fawn.
hello. So I heard that you mentioned earlier that you did the advertising and marketing by yourself and your partner, the marketer. And how do you guys do that?
Yeah, so she started off as a contractor for me, and she's one of our employees now. So and she had just self-taught herself how to use the Facebook advertising platform. And again, it's not easy, and I've never taught myself how to do it because there are people who are specialists in advertising, and I think that's probably one of the mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they try to learn how to do everything themselves. And I think it's really helpful if you know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then you're able to find people, especially when you start hiring people to help you that are really good at, what they're good at. So you find experts in their fields and you bring together a team of people that are really good at what they're good at, and they do what their area of expertise entails, and you all just build a company together. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else?
All
Do you
right,
guys want to tell me?
We got room for, do you have any other questions for Sahar? Feel free to type it in the chat box.
Were there any, so Jamie wants to know, were there any failures you had when starting your business? How did you manage them? One of the biggest failures we had when we launched, so we have, so this, for example, is our shampoo and conditioner bottles, and these are the styling products, the all-in-ones. These guys go in the shower, they're squeezable, and these guys have a pump, they stay out of the shower. And the label company made a mistake and printed the wrong labels on the wrong products. So these ones are supposed to have a squeezable material. And when I picked up my first bottle of shampoo conditioner from the manufacturing facility and I took it home and used it in the shower, I would squeeze the bottle and water went all under the labels. And there was 10,000 of these that were already labeled, and I already had customers that had pre-purchased product. So I had to go into my manufacturing facility and basically get on the line and hand peel all of the labels off of these bottles and then help them relabel 10,000 bottles. And then I had to get a lawyer to get my money back from the label supplier that had essentially just messed up, and they wouldn't give me my money back. They wouldn't redo the labels. So I had to get my money back from them and then find another label supplier to redo all of the labels. So that was December of 2017, like right before Christmas, and customers had placed their orders and they were waiting. So that was probably one of the first learnings and huge failures in the company at a very, very critical time. But I learned to double check everything, and, you know, especially at the beginning, just trust yourself and be involved in everything before things actually go to market and go on the products. Awesome. Mentors along the way. That's a great question, Clarissa. I've had a lot of mentors, I think, and former bosses that I've worked for, teachers that I've worked with. You know, and I think just reaching out to people that impact you. I mean, I had a lot of ADD, I think, going to school, and I don't really realize it. I mean, no one ever really diagnosed me with ADD, but I could not focus in class for more than 5 minutes. And I was always that kid that got like straight A's in school, but I was never paying attention in class because my mind would wander. But then I could like go home and really sit there and cram alone. I could like learn material from a book and do really, really well on tests. But I didn't really do well in classrooms, except there was, you know, a handful of teachers I had in my lifetime that like really caught my attention, and they worked. Like their style of teaching really resonated with me. So when I was building my company, I definitely reached out to them, explained some problems I was having along the way, and they were great mentors. And then again, just former bosses that I've worked with. I'd worked for over 12 years for other companies before I started my company. And I think that was super helpful because I learned a lot from them, and then I could kind of hit them up and ask them questions as well. That was a great question. Anyone else? Tim, how old were you when you started your business? This business, I was 35. So I'm 39 now. And I was 35 when I started Lust, so just about 4 years ago. But I started working full time when I was 18. So I started knocking on doors, selling things door to door, commission only, when I was 18. I only completed the first year of my undergrad. So I went to university for a year and then dropped out and kept knocking on doors because I was making a lot of money at the time, and then worked for different companies. I got back into the corporate world. I was vice president of sales for a multi-million-dollar health and wellness company by the time I was 25. Then I quit and moved to the Caribbean. I worked for a private jet charter company down there. I worked for some resorts, moved to New York, moved to LA, and then eventually ended up back here in Toronto, went back to school, got my master's degree, and then started a company. So my life's kind of been all over the place and definitely not conventional, but I just followed my gut along the way. And, you know, I started my company, what's typically considered later in life. I mean, nowadays 35 is starting a company later in life, but it was a good decision for me. That's a good question. Clarissa, did you ever pursue an internship, or do you recommend? So it's funny, I interned at a law firm when I was in grade 11 because I always wanted to be a lawyer. And that internship steered me away from law because all they did was read contracts and file paperwork. And I think that was probably one of the best things I did, because I interned at a law firm and they did corporate law, they did family law. So they practiced different areas of law. And I really got to see what the day-to-day life of a lawyer is like. And it wasn't like on TV when they just go to court every day and fight cases. So yeah, I did intern, and it was great because it changed the direction that I took with my career. It wasn't what I wanted to do as a living. So yeah, that's a great question. Anyone else? You guys want to tell me what you're starting and any questions you have about the types of business ideas you have? No? Okay.
We have time for one more question. I think I see Clarissa typing. Here we go.
Where do I see myself in 5 years? retired on a beach, relaxing. No, yeah, she's like, no, that's not going to happen. All entrepreneurs say we're going to, build a company, get rich, and then retire. And then we never do. We go on to other things. But yeah, I think Lust has a lot of room to grow. I mean, we're about a $200 million company right now, and I think we could be $1 billion company. So we are growing. We have about 40 employees right now, and yeah, so we're still growing, building things, going global next year, expanding into the European, UK, and Australian market, new product developments, new ideas, curly hair care for men, for kids, hair color for kids. So a lot of room for growth.
Well, thank you so much,
You're
Sahar.
very
It was great
welcome.
having you in our breakout room.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi there.
Hi, Samantha. Welcome to breakout room number 4. This is Samantha John, CEO of Hopscotch Technology. Take it away.
Well, hello there, everyone. I see that Kwan is on video. Does anyone else want to show their face on video? So we can have, like, I can see who's actually here and who's secretly getting a snack downstairs. Hi there, Clarissa. Anyone else? So I guess, what I did with the last session was I kind of asked, I want to, be helpful to you guys. So, why are people here? Why did you guys decide to come to this conference and spend your Friday on Zoom? Or maybe you spend all your Fridays on Zoom because that's how school works now. Why are people here? I'll call on people if you want. If no one
Feel
wants
free
to
to use the chat box too.
Yeah, you can answer in the chat. Clarissa, what made you decide to come to this conference?
So I'm a teacher.
Okay.
And so I'm here to promote this. I work at a school that encourages students to pursue their entrepreneurshipness. And so I invited all my students to attend. And so they're in different breakout rooms, hopefully, and whatnot. I have a passion for art. So if I could pick up on any entrepreneurship stuff, then maybe my art could get, in a gallery someday or something like that.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I think that something that I think about a lot with entrepreneurship and starting a company is that it's not so different than art. Like, it's very creative. It's you're kind of creating something from nothing and spending years of your life trying to shape that thing. You get to decide everything about it, which is really fun. Like, you can design the brand and the logo and the marketing and the actual thing that you make. So I mean, I think it's like a really interesting thing for kids to consider because I imagine that probably a lot of your day is spent on Zoom listening to teachers with your camera turned off. or a lot of your day is spent like outside playing while your computer is on with your camera off. I have no idea what you guys are doing. Kwan, why are you here? Are you also a teacher?
No, I'm a student.
Okay.
And yeah, I got invited from a field trip, and then my teachers just put it as a field trip, and then we just get here and yeah.
Oh, and did people, sorry, I should have asked this. Did people hear the beginning of the conference where we kind of introduced ourselves, or would it be helpful for me to kind of give you some background? I kind of just jumped into it. So my name is Samantha John. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hopscotch, which is a coding app for kids. What that means is you download our app on your iPhone or iPad, and you can learn to code using our kind of easy to use, drag and drop programming language. And then as you learn, you're able to actually create games and apps on your device that you can then share with your friends and family and with the hundreds of thousands of kids in our community. So you kind of go from learning the basics of coding to making something that is meaningful to you and meaningful to other people. And we've been in the App Store since 2013, and we have about over 23 million downloads to date. And it's for kids ages 8 to 16. So kids, if you are actually, in fact, in this room, you should definitely download Hopscotch. Does anyone have any questions about entrepreneurship? Do people want to start companies, or are you like, you're like, I would never want to do this, but like, good for you that you're doing it? Where are people? What are people at in their entrepreneurial journey? Kwan, what about you? Sorry to pick on you.
I'm more about in the fashion pathway, but like I'm still thinking about like designing and like art, but like I want to open like a business that like sell clothes and like, yeah.
That's awesome. Have you made your own clothes before, or do you already make your own clothes?
I have, yes. Like I got my clothes, like I bought it online, and then when I get like when it's shipped from yeah, and then I just like kind of designed it and then like remaking it.
That's so cool. That's so impressive. I love that. I feel like that seems like inconceivable to me to like take apart my clothes and put them together again. I love that. Okay, a question from Jamie. How did you find what you're passionate about before being an entrepreneur? That's a great question. And I actually don't have a great answer to that, because that's kind of like the question of life. You're like, what are you passionate about? That's like, what is the meaning of your life? And it's kind of an ongoing journey to try and figure out. You know, for me, my journey involved trying a lot of different things. I actually tried to start a bunch of businesses before I started Hopscotch, mostly just kind of on the side while I was still working. And I would quickly lose interest and not really feel like doing it anymore. So that was a good signal that those things were not my passion. So I do feel very passionate about Hopscotch. It's such a fun job. It's such a fun thing to do, to kind of all day be watching kids be creative and seeing you know, the amazing games that kids make. So like, even if you guys don't actually want to be coders, you can still download Hopscotch and just play the games that other kids have made, and they're really fun. Highly recommend that as a leisure activity. So you know, for me, it was a little bit about trying a lot of things and seeing what stuck. Let's see. Oh, from Clarissa. How did you fund your business? So when we first started, we did not have any money, and we kind of talked to investors, and they were uninterested in giving us money. They didn't really believe, people liked the idea. People were like, yes, a coding language for kids, that's really cool. You know, we were actually the first coding language written for an iPad. So it was very innovative, but people just didn't really believe that we could do it. You know, we were, you know, my co-founder and I were both pretty unproven. So what we would do is, I knew how to program, and she had gone to business school and had done real estate investing. So both of us were able to, we worked 4 days a week, and then the 5th day we would do consulting jobs to kind of make enough money to like pay our rent and eat. And we did that for over a year before we actually did eventually raise some money from investors. After we had launched, after we had been the first coding language for the iPad and gotten like tens of thousands of downloads, then we finally raised money. How did you figure out the name of your business? So from Luke. So we figured out the name, some of it was just like sitting around for a long time, just coming up with lots of stupid names and seeing what stuck. But what we eventually settled on hopscotch, someone was like, hopscotch is an idea. And we loved how it sounded. And then we realized that hopscotch is a game that you have to make yourself before you can play it, which exactly describes what Hopscotch the app does. You can play fun games, but you have to make them first. So, the combination of liking the way it sounded and having kind of a perfect story is what we came up with. If you're thinking about naming a company though, I think there are like internet company name generators. I think we were thinking about naming it a girl's name. So at one point we were thinking about calling it Emma, but one of our a friend who was helping us with the business, his girlfriend was named Emma. So we thought that would be awkward. So we got inspiration from all sorts of places. Any other questions? I see another question actually earlier from Clarissa. What does it take to launch an app? So I think it's easier now to launch an app than it used to be when we started. You basically, there's like various, knowing how to code really helps. But I think, you can hire a coder if you can scramble together the money, you can learn how to code. There are, Apple tries to make it as easy as, they've really done a lot of work to try and make it easier to code for code apps, but it's a lot of it is just persistence. Like you just have to think in longer time frames. It'll probably be hard to launch an app in a month, but it's probably pretty doable to launch an app in a year. So it's a lot of just building it brick by brick until you have something reasonable that you're able to put in the App Store. From Kwan, how do you do your advertising? So we haven't done, I would say it's a weakness of Hopscotch is we haven't always done a great job of marketing. We've been, I think as a creator, you tend to just be really obsessed with your product and maybe you feel this about your clothes where you're like, I just want to make this the perfect shirt or the perfect dress and it's hard to even think beyond that because it's such a big task to actually make something good. So we definitely fall into that trap sometimes. For us, a big thing has actually just been publicity of various sorts, like getting people to write articles about us, kind of going out there and telling our story. And then also actually getting Hopscotch on iPads in schools. So a lot of times schools will download Hopscotch on their iPads and teachers will teach it or they might not even teach it, but it might just be available. And that's a way that students find out about it and then kind of start sharing it with their friends. But yeah, I mean, advertising, that's like the heart of the business is how do you, once you have something amazing, how do you tell the people who would like it that it exists? It's not something that has a single answer. It's unique to every business that you start. Anyone else have any questions? Vicky, do you have any questions? Vicky, what made you decide to, you're muted. What made you decide to come to this conference?
I'm actually the teacher. I sent my students here.
Oh, well, what made you decide to send your students here?
So these are all juniors and they're learning entrepreneurship. This is their first year and they don't know it quite yet, but in the spring semester, they're actually going to be launching their own businesses and creating a business plan and doing the whole presentation, everything. And I think that this is a great opportunity for them to start thinking about what their future could look like afterwards. I think they might see this as it's just a final project, it's for a grade, right? But what I hear so many, like often adults, when they hear what I do, they're like, I wish I had this class. I wish I learned early on kind of the basics of it and not go through maybe like the corporate way. Not that it's bad. It's just like, you know, I would have learned so much more if I started earlier. And so I wanted them to kind of get a chance to see.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm sorry, that's all the time we have left. I believe they're calling you back to the main room, and students, go ahead and hang out in this room. And thank you, Samantha.
Thank you all. How do I go back to the main room?
Oh, it says leave room on the bottom right.
Oh, okay. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.
And she said yes. And so I said, you know, I'm happy to buy lunch and maybe we can get together a couple of times. And so we had, you know, 3-4 hours on, you know, 3 different occasions, each one for an hour, where then I felt kind of free to ask her questions. But at the beginning of my career of writing, I would just write little tiny articles, and, you know, you go to a magazine and you pitch them the idea, and then they have to say, okay, and then you go off and write it. So it's kind of all on spec. And, you know, I had to just kind of keep the faith that if I kept at it, and I really worked on the craft, that hopefully I would have some luck. And something that really helped me was taking writing classes, which I did through like Berkeley Extension. And they were like really inexpensive classes that would be, you know, once a week in the evening. And that was how I found like my first community of writers. So then I had peers that I could go talk to and find out how were they getting started or how were they getting jobs at doing articles for magazines. And that was how the whole thing began. And then if there's something you guys want to know about doing my book, Girls Who Run the World, I could tell you more about how that came together. What are you guys interested in knowing? Anything? So maybe I can go ahead.
So I don't know if this is hi. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is if this relates to journalism, but I've heard that when you're starting a business, you have to decide between sole proprietorship or LLC. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure how to like distinguish which one would be the best option for like the business I want to start.
What's the business that you want to start?
I want to start a sustainable clothing brand.
That's cool. Right now I'm working on a new book, which is called Girls Who Green the World. And it's all about innovators in the sustainability space. And so I've been talking to people in sort of clean beauty and clean fashion. There's a really cool company started by a teenager called Fair Harbor. And it's these bathing suits that are made out of recycled plastic bottles. And all their fabrics come from sustainable materials. But in terms of whether you should become a sole proprietorship or an LLC, I don't think I'm the right person to answer that. I think that's, but I also don't think that's the first thing you need to figure out. I think you need to just kind of wade in and figure out like, what is your product going to be and how are you going to get started making a prototype and those kinds of very basic things. And then I think the structure will kind of, it will kind of appear for you as what makes most sense.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's a cool idea though. I think that young people are so into environmental things and that it's going to become like consumers are going to really demand that products are sustainable. So it's going to be a great market.
Yeah. I'm not really sure if this is also related to journalism, but I was wondering how to get wholesale from certain companies to get material to make product, because I know they don't really sell like wholesale to just regular customers. Like you have to come with a company. So like what certifications or what do you need to like prove to the company that you're eligible for wholesale?
Right. I know that at Fair Harbor, I might be able to follow up with you about this, but I know that there was some kind of website that they went on, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but you could do some Googling. And it was a place that helped you find a consultant for kind of inexpensive that could, in their case, they needed help with how to figure out who could manufacture. But it's like they have all kinds of people that could help you find your way into the apparel industry. And I also think you should just write to some of these wholesalers and say, look, I'm a young person. I know that you typically don't sell, but could you give me a suggestion about how I might go about this? Because, you know, I think everyone you just start with asking somebody a question, and they will lead you to the next person and the next person. And that's just the only way to go about it. Like, get on LinkedIn, search around under, you know, apparel manufacturing, wholesale manufacturing, and you'll find some names of people and then outreach to them.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
And Diana, this group's going to see Devin in our final rotation. So he
He'd be
might
great.
be able to share some insight on that too.
He'll be the guy for you guys. Yeah.
We have 2 questions in the chat related to your book.
I'm not sure I can see these.
The first is just, where can we find your book? And then the second was, how did you find the people to write about in your book?
Okay, so you can find my book pretty much on any Amazon, Barnes and Noble, in the bookstores. It's called Girls Who Run the World. And because I had already been writing as a journalist, I had a couple of good connections with a few entrepreneurs. And so I started with those people, and each time I would have an interview, I would not get off the phone until I asked those people, who else do you think I should include in a book about, you know, 31 pioneering women? And I literally would make them give me their email right then and there, because it is one thing I'll tell you, if you kind of are with someone and they're like, great, I'd love to get you those contacts, but then you like hang up the phone or leave the room, it's really hard to get back to them and get their attention again. So I would say, like, really try to get it when you have their attention and you have them in person or on the phone. But I wrote a lot of notes where I would just, you know, I would be writing on a lot of these websites, you can't find anybody's email. You're writing to like their general info line that's like and it's like a form email. But I would do that, and I would just explain what I was doing, that I was writing a book, and I was lucky because I had already sold the book to Random House. So I had like a good name publisher that gave it some legitimacy. But I would explain what I was doing. And the other thing I would do is I would try to get 1 or 2 kind of well-known people right at the beginning to agree to be in the book, because then you can, on all the emails you can write, you can say, you know, I already have participation from Jen Hyman at Run the Runway and Elizabeth Cuthbert at SoulCycle. You know, would you be willing to join them? And so those are hard ones to get, but they're kind of worth your time right at the beginning, because then once you have those, it's like everyone wants to join the party. How long did it take for you to find one person after another? Well, it was so fast that I had to write that book, because you write a proposal, which is about like a 20-page document where you pretty much lay out, like, this is going to be the 31 people in the book. These are what the chapter heads are going to be called. This is what I'm going to write for my introduction. And then when the publishing company takes that, then they tell you, you know, based on our thinking about the market, this topic about, you know, sort of women's empowerment and girls becoming CEOs is so hot right now. Like, we really want this fast. So I had to, after selling it in June, I had to turn in my whole 31 chapters plus an introduction by October. So that was just like a mad rush for 5 months. So just as quickly as I can. I was cycling through people and trying to do like short interviews and make sure that they had a great story. And I did a lot of listening to them on podcasts. There's so much you can find out about people right now just by Googling. You can hear them talk at conferences and do TED Talks and do podcasts. So you can learn a ton about the people before you ever call them up. And one thing I would encourage you is whenever you're going to do an outreach to someone that you're interested in talking to for your company, do some research in advance, because it's the more you know about them, and you don't have to ask them kind of an obvious question, and you can use the limited time to ask them something, you know, kind of that's going to move you forward, that's not easily available. I think it's going to be a better use of your time. And they'll respect you for just doing some legwork about them. I just found out for my second book that I have until April and I'm going to have probably like 35, you know, entrepreneurs in the sustainability and green power and like alternative foods space. And this is much more technical. So it's proving to be a little bit trickier, because in order for me to write about an entrepreneur that's making bathing suits out of plastic, I have to understand a lot about the science and what's the problem with all the plastic, and how did we get to this place, and you know, how does plastic break down, and why aren't we doing more recycling? And for each one, it's like that. So I'm doing something about solar energy. You know, this woman, Lynn Jurek, she is the largest solar provider in the United States. But I first have to learn, like, is solar energy being taken up in the US? And why is it so costly? And how does it compare to other forms of energy? Anyway, it's just a lot of learning for me as someone who's, you know, not a scientist, not a specialist in the environmental space. But that's also kind of the fun part of it, is learning all the time. I do a lot of Googling.
And students, you guys, you're welcome to chime in with questions. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but we're a small group, so I'm perfectly fine. If you'd like to unmute and ask Diana a question directly, totally fine. And then of course, Diana,
Or you guys want to tell me what it is you guys are working on? I'm totally interested in what you're thinking about for your own entrepreneurial ideas.
I was just gonna ask, what do you do to help yourself stay on task and get things done with a really fast deadline?
That's such a good question. I try to kind of plot out a little bit of a timing schedule. So I'll see how many weeks do I have until it's due, and how many people do I need to talk to. And then I'll say, like, I about have a week for each woman. And so then I'll, you know, write to that schedule. And, you know, even though it's kind of always hanging over my head and I feel a little bit of stress about it, I know that I can only do like a couple of hours of productive work every day. So then I try to like give myself a break when I'm not doing that.
Marley, that was a great question, and I was enjoying her answer. But we're going to cycle through our 3 rotations fairly quickly today. So we're going to move on, and we'll be joined shortly by one of our entrepreneur guest speakers. And students, just in the interim here, I didn't introduce myself. My name's Taran. I work for Junior Achievement. I'm down here in Monterey County. I see we've got Stephen on with us now.
Hey guys.
Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to share my experience with anyone that may be curious about, you know, what I do, what it is how I got started, and so on and so forth.
Excellent. And we have limited time with you. So could you maybe start with like the quick intro to who you are and your company, but limiting it to a few minutes so we can get into questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Curacubby. We're a software company that provides technology services to schools. What we do is we help them automate office tasks. We help provide digital payments so that the parents don't have to write checks for tuitions. And we help optimize and streamline all the things that the school administrators hate doing. So in a nutshell, that's what I do now. But you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. My first business I started when I was 12, growing up in Oakland, California. I started a DJ business. I was 12, started a record label when I was 16, sold the record label, put myself through school. And then from there started a few other businesses. And ultimately what got me into this business was, I have a son with autism, and we actually started a school for kids with autism. It was during the inception of the school that we've experienced all of these pain points ourselves. And that's why we built the software. So it kind of came full circle through necessity.
Wow, that was brilliant. By the way, 2 minutes. We got a whole lot and a great understanding of your background. Yeah. Marley, did you have a question? Did you want to chime in?
I do have a question. I was really curious about the record label business. I was wondering if you could tell me or tell us more about that and how you got that started.
Yeah, this was in the mid 90s. So I was a DJ, and this was like during the golden age of hip hop. So like, you know, I was actually involved with many of the rappers coming out of Oakland during that time. So I was a tour DJ for a group called the Loonies. There's a big song called I Got Five on it. So I was tour DJ for those guys. I grew up with those guys. And I started producing music, and it was really back in the days before there was SoundCloud and Spotify and all that. So what we had to do is we would produce music, we would create cassette tapes, and we would go to school dances, and we would sell those cassette tapes at the school dances. And that was like the record label. That really was the record label. So we got some notice from a local distribution company, and another record label that was much bigger than ours decided that they wanted to buy our catalog. We had 2 albums that were out. They bought our catalog. I decided to actually get out of the hip hop scene pretty much because there was an incident. We were doing a show with the Loonies and Rapping Forte, and it was in San Francisco. There was actually a gunfight that happened, and I was like, am I gonna lose my life? So it just kind of changed. It kind of changed my perspective, and I took a completely different pivot in college. But to answer your question, that's how it starts. It's just having the love for something and just finding a way to just go about doing it. There's no right way. There's no one answer. There's like probably 1,000 different ways to go about doing things. It was just during that time we kind of leveraged school dances to sell cassette tapes. By the way, do you know what a cassette tape is?
I think so. Possibly.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Look it up. Google it. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, I was one of your customers buying the Loonies.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, guys, what a cool story. Yeah, Emily, go ahead.
Do you remember what company bought it?
Yeah, it was Dog Day Records.
I see.
Yeah, I don't think that they're around anymore. But again, during the mid 90s, Bay Area gangster rap was a thing. That Taryn, I'm sure you remember. That was the scene. Bay Area, like Oakland, San Francisco, Vallejo. This is when E40 was just like, oh my gosh, this is nostalgia. But yeah, it was a really exciting time. It was a really exciting time.
So remarkable though that you were able to come into a little bit of money it sounds like as a teenager, young, right? But then you chose to invest that in your education. Why not buy a Mercedes, or why not,
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that question by going backwards a little bit, right? So, I'm ethnically Chinese, but my family, 2 generations of my family lived in Vietnam. So we came here when I was 3 after the war. So when we came here, it was kind of hard times for us. Our family was on welfare. And so even at a very young age, there was a lot of internal pressure to kind of chip in to help with the family. And, if I had it my way, I would have kind of went full force with the record business. I really looked up to Master P and Diddy and all these guys, music moguls. But I think it was that one incident that really changed my life. Just hey, this was not necessarily it was just a different calling. And then I had a little bit of money. I had a little bit of money, and I was actually in the CAP program, the Cooperative Admissions Program. Basically, they said, the state of California said this: if you go to community college for 2 years, graduate with a 3.0, we guarantee you admission to any of the UCs that you want, right? And I thought 3.0, that's doable. I can do that. And that's what I did. I graduated with a 3.3 and chose UC Berkeley, and I got in. So I hope that's helpful to answer your question. But I was just never really into like the cars and all that stuff. I was just kind of more like concerned with like, you know, I wanted to like, you know, I wanted to like give back, like, you know, to my parents, like, hey, you know, here's some money that you guys can retire from.
Vicky, did you have a question? No, just applauding. It's worthy of applause, and so hopefully some of our teenagers on this call take that to heart. Marley, Marley, let's go real quick. We had a question from Joanne, just wondering, did you personally make music or just produce? So that was just a follow up on the music.
I made the music. Yeah, I made the music. I produced the music. I didn't do any of the rapping. I didn't write any of the lyrics, but all the musical content, I made the music and produced it.
Cool. And Marley, you had another question?
Oh no, I was just applauding.
Thanks for the applaud.
Okay, so chronologically then, now you headed off to school. You said you're a serial entrepreneur. So do you want to talk about one of your other early ventures or some other successes as a young adult?
Yeah, so there was a sort of a lot of serendipity in my life. So when I graduated at UC Berkeley, this was 1998. So this is before Google came out, right? We just had the internet. The internet had just been invented. And there was on-campus recruiting, and there was a company that says, hey, we're hiring headhunters or recruiters to help recruit engineers for this new industry called software technology. I had no idea what all this stuff was. So I said, you know what? Sounds fun to me. So I just took a chance, joined the company, and I actually became their top salesperson. So after a year, I said, here, there's a good opportunity. So I quit and started my own company, built my own staffing company, did really well. And if you guys remember history, you know, there was a big boom, and then there was a big crash as well. So there was a big crash in the early 2000s, and you know, kind of all the recruiting money kind of dried up. And then from there, I made a complete pivot to fitness. I started a fitness business, a fitness company. That lasted about 17 years. I sold it recently.
Pretty inspiring, guys. Am I right? That's gets you fired up to hear somebody talk about their entrepreneurial journey, and just that was really, I enjoyed our time. Brief though, man. It's like I want to talk to Stephen for another 20 minutes. But actually, exciting news. Our next speaker, I think, will be Devin, who we heard from in the beginning of today's get together. And that could go back to some of those questions we were talking about. I think, Melissa, you were asking about some of the starting up a clothing line, and I think Devin might have some insight into that. Any thoughts and feedback? Oh, here's Devin right now.
Hey, sorry about that. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. This has been really awesome. Thank you for being here with us.
I love it. I heard the loonies.
Yes, yes. Stephen, awesome. Our last speaker, I was one of his customers in the 90s when he was working with the loonies.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. How you guys doing? I know everybody's on mute. But yeah, thanks for, do I just jump in, or how are we going to structure this?
Oh, you could jump in. We actually already had Melissa, one of our students, on with us, was really curious because she's a young entrepreneur interested in starting a sustainable clothing line. And so she really wanted to pepper you with some questions. So actually, maybe just since we only have limited time, Melissa, you just want to throw your questions at Devin?
Yeah, so one of the things I was wondering is if I should choose sole proprietorship or LLC. But I know that's farther down the line. So I think something closer to where I'm at is deciding, like, the clothing I'm making, it's by hand. And I know that's not going to be sustainable in the long run. So would I need to find a manufacturer, and how would I kind of keep that sustainability when finding a manufacturer? Since if it does get bigger, I probably won't be able to make all of them by hand myself.
Right. That's a great question. I think in terms of, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to give you, legal advice in terms of how to set all that stuff up. I think that there are a lot of people, I may have actually somebody that you can talk to as well, just to kind of pick their brain in terms of setting it up. When we first started, we started off as a sole proprietor because it was just, we didn't need the LLC. When you have an LLC, you have like a minimum tax credit that you have to pay of $800, even if you make 0 sales, and that's per year. So I don't think an LLC would probably be best for you right now. But again, like I said, that's not legal advice. I think in terms of, to answer your question for the sustainability and doing it by hand, we started off doing everything by hand, right? So we started off airbrushing and customizing t-shirts and products, and that's kind of how we got the momentum started. And as we started to build out, then we started to look into kind of mass production and things of that nature. So I think it's really cool and a unique space that's something that's sustainable right now, that you can do things by hand to just see kind of what people react to, what people like. Are you what kind of products are you making?
So right now, I'm making bucket hats. So I kind of use denim that's either like painter's denim, so denim that people throw away, or denim that my friends are gonna throw away, they give it to me. And then I make hats out of them. And then the scraps, I turn those into a hat as well. So I'm like working on one right now. This is the brim of the hat that I'm working on right now. So I kind of put the seams on the outside. This isn't what it looks like in the end. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. All of my material, it's pretty inexpensive since it is secondhand and donated. But yeah, right now I'm trying to go from hats to tote bags because I have smaller scraps that I'm going to try to turn into material for the tote bags. And then from there, I want to learn how to make like shirts, find a way to make sustainable t-shirts. And yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a couple things I have, and I don't know if in the chat, if my email address, oh no, it doesn't come up in here. I'm going to put it in here. I actually have some manufacturers that you could even pick their brain, maybe not right now, but just to have in terms of like creating headwear or creating sustainable tote bags and things of that nature. But I think with what you're doing is great, right? This is a great start to kind of build your brand, get kind of tested out to see what people like, see what people respond to. This is one thing that I would say, how are you marketing? Are you doing like TikTok videos of like showing the process of like, oh, I went and did, this from start to scratch or from start to finish? How are you doing like the marketing and kind of like the storytelling piece of it?
Yeah, so I haven't started selling yet since I made my first hat like 3 weeks ago. So I'm still kind of trying to like master that craft to make sure my like product is quality. But once I do start actually putting it out there and marketing it, I am planning on doing TikTok. I want Instagram to be a big thing, like to create an aesthetic on there, because I feel like aesthetic is a big thing that people purchase things off of, like one of the big reasons people buy things. So going off that, like I want to do some photography and film that would really help market it. So maybe find a friend that's really into film or photography, or maybe even myself get into it. Yeah, that's basically Instagram, TikTok, and then putting out like short films and like photography.
I love that. Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think just focusing on, like you said, learning your craft, figuring out how the quality control is, having all of that stuff ready to go, especially because you're so new into it. It's like figuring out, okay, how do I make these pieces? Where do I source fabric? Things of that nature. Then when you start to get a cadence, there's a lot of stuff that you can do where you can keep it custom, and you can just figure out how you can do the supply and demand, where you can either set it up to where you can do mass production, say you do limited runs of 6 pieces, and then you can sell it that way, or you do something where you can do, one-offs, or you want to go the custom route where they're made to order, where people could call, type in and customize it and stuff like that. So I think you're on the right track. I think that, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily right now, I wouldn't focus on manufacturers. I wouldn't focus on, the sole proprietorship can be something that's interesting to set up. Send me an email. I put my email in the draft folder. I have a connection that I can put you in touch with. I want to say it's the Small Business Development Center. We worked with them in the beginning, and they have a bunch of different resources, like free resources. Everything is free, where they'll hook you up with an attorney. They have different classes that you can take. It's just a really good resource to be able to to learn that and get some advice around just the legal structure of it and how you should set it up. But I think in terms of like your product development and what you're doing right now, I think you're on the right track. Just do everything by hand. That's exactly how we started. We started doing everything by hand for probably the first 5 years, or probably like the first like 4 years. We did everything by hand. Everything was all custom and stuff like that. And then as we started to get the hang of it, then we started to look into the mass production and things of that nature. So I think now with the internet, you can do some really cool custom pieces, and people like that stuff. They like finding those unique one-off specialty items. So I think you can really like be onto something with this, especially with the whole sustainability approach as well.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll definitely. I don't think it's letting me copy paste the email, so I'll just type it in to my.
Okay. Yes, Devin at Curio, DEVIN at KURIEO.com.
That's awesome insight. Any other question, guys, for Devin about his current business, about his entrepreneurial journey? Work with the Warriors.
Yeah. Warriors, Nike. Questions are always issue, but I think so. I would say if there's no questions, I would just say if there's anything, find mentors that are in positions that you want to be in and see how you can provide value to them to learn from them. A lot of times when you're, when people are, in situations, sometimes they want to think that, oh, I need to get paid for this, or I need to, I can't do the work for free. Doing work for free, especially with where you guys are in the beginning, is so much more valuable than getting paid most of the time, because money comes and goes. Even if you get paid $1,000, eventually the $1,000 is going to run out. But the knowledge that you gain is something that you'll never forget. And that is the thing that is going to be most valuable, is the information and the knowledge. So finding people that are in situations that you want to be in and going to work for them for free. I mean, now it's like, hey, I can help organize. I could be an assistant for you, or I could, moderate Zoom meetings or whatever it is to be able to just provide value, because we are in a COVID situation right now. But learning from people, finding mentors it's a shortcut to success, right? It's a way that you can bypass a lot of learnings to be able to get and accomplish what you want faster. It's completely changed my life when I found the right mentors to kind of help me pick their brain, whether that was in business, whether that was in the clothing industry, the screen printing industry. It's a really great way to not bypass the learning curve, but to kind of speed it up a little bit. You're still, of course, going to have to go through the experience and fail and all this stuff, but having a mentor just really helps.
Well, and Devin, sorry, if we have a question, go ahead, guys.
What's it called? So do you have any advice on finding mentors or like opportunities like that now that we're online or in the midst of COVID?
Yeah, I would find stuff like, literally we have social media, right? Find a brand on Instagram that you like and DM them, right? Just DM them and say, hey, I'm learning, I'm in high school, I really want to get into this industry. I'll work for free. Is there anything I could do? Whether that's like responding to DMs, posting stuff on social media, I don't care what it is, I'm willing to work. I just want to learn and get the information. So a lot of times when you do that, you have to stay persistent too. A lot of times people will do that for me, and then if I get busy, I never hear from them again. But sometimes the people that are persistent and say, hey, look, I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll do this, I'll help. What can I do? The people that are more persistent end up getting the opportunities. And a lot of times people will test you, right? They'll give you a task or something to do. And then depending on your response, they'll know how much time they can invest into you, because if you're going to actually do something with the information. The last thing, if you're in with these busy people, the last thing they're going to want to do is waste their time. So you're just going to have to be able to prove that, hey, I really want this opportunity. I'm really serious about it. I'm really willing to do whatever I need to do to be able to make that happen. So I think there's a huge opportunity right now with, social media and helping out in a digital space, finding those brands and seeing, hey, can I help with like customer support or customer service? Like I just want to provide value to you because I want to be in these meetings and I want to like learn how this stuff operates and works.
Sweet, thanks.
Definitely.
Devin, you mentioned the idea of learning from failure. I'm wondering if you could think back to a time that you failed, maybe a specific example, or, just.
Yeah, I fail every day. So I'm like, I can think about some yesterday. I failed at. But I think failure is such a part of the process. It's such a big part I would say one of the biggest failures recently, and I'll speed it up. We did a campaign for our clothing company, doing everything different. It was in 2016. It was called Let's Be United. I put everything into it. It was a public thing. I told all my friends and family about it. I even neglected my main business of screen printing and having the manufacturing facility to do this campaign. Long story short, it was a big failure. We didn't sell one product. I think we sold like 2 products, and one was like my mom and the other was like from my aunt. And it just completely failed, and it was like a public embarrassment. But it was the catalyst to get me to start our agency Curio, because I found out I really like putting campaigns together. Even though it failed, I just didn't know the right steps on what to do, and how to market it and how to run ads and all these different things. But I really liked putting the actual campaign together. So I said, okay, there's something there that we can do. And so I found out about what an advertising agency is, and they actually do campaigns for companies that have budgets to be able to do campaigns right. And so it kind of shifted, and that was what birthed Curio and our agency that we have now. And now we work with, like I said, some of the biggest brands in the world, and we just did a collaboration with Starbucks and 250,000 shirts for every location in the US and Canada. But it wouldn't have happened if we didn't like hit rock bottom and have that public failure and have that, oh, this campaign didn't work, but I like this, to be able to adapt. And that's like a big failure. I think day to day you go through miniature failures all the time. And I just think that like failure is something is, if you quit, if you let it stop you, that's a failure. I just look at everything as a learning experience, right? You learn, okay, that didn't work, right? There was an outcome, it worked, it just didn't work and have the results that you wanted, right? Like, so that's how I look at it. You just have to find out what the outcome is, right? Failure is just an outcome to show you that that thing didn't work. And so when you put in the mindset of that and understand that failure is a part of the process to learn what works, then you'll be on to something. And getting okay with failure is the biggest thing that has contributed to my success of where I am today, of just being okay with it and not being, scared of looking bad in front of people. Like, who cares? Like, who cares?
Well, that's really well said and great insight, Devin. And I think you're about to be pulled back to the main room, where students are going to stay put. But yeah, I wish we had more time with you. That was really fantastic. And
Definitely.
Appreciate you being with us.
And I'm going to put my email address in here. So if any of you guys have any questions, I'll just throw it in there again. So shoot me an email, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. And thank you for your guys' time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
And students, you guys stay right here with us. We've got another component to the program. But yeah, another amazing speaker. Honestly, all of these speakers are so inspirational. And so if you to answer the last questions in the chat, Curio, you can see it spelled there. That's his ad agency, his current business. And as far as biggest projects, I mean, he mentioned that he's working with Starbucks and Nike, right? So it doesn't get much bigger than that. To have a business relationship with 2 of the largest companies in the world, that's pretty big, right? But yeah, I'm sure you could look up on his website and learn some more about Curio. For the next part of today's program, guys, we're going to work together, you're going to work together on a little group project. But I believe we're due to be joined by a mentor from one of our partners who's going to help kind of coach us through some of it. So hang tight.
Hi, I think I'm Angie. I'm from McKinsey.
Yep, Angie. Oh, you're already with us.
Yeah. I snuck in about 10 minutes ago. So here
Perfect. So Angie, I don't know if you have a copy of the launch lesson that you can share on your screen, or if you'd like me to share my screen.
Yeah, I think your screen would be probably good. I have 2 monitors on, and it's kind of glitchy sometimes. Thank you.
You bet. Hang one sec. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. Let's make sure I have.
Yeah, but like I think at this current stage, right, it's just like knowledge accumulation. No capital yet, unless you find like, I think for the 900K one, you probably find way more than 10. If it's like talking about.
And if I'm hearing your background noise, guys, please mute if you don't mind. Okay. I'm just gonna have to pause my recording.
Businesses right now. I'm working on a project for a big consumer goods company. So what you see when you walk through your grocery stores, what you see when you walk through your Target, your Walmart, helping some companies who sell products there. So super excited to join you guys and help you guys through today's project.
Perfect. And I believe I've tracked down the right tool to share with you guys. Where did it go? Okay, so we've got, I think we have, is it 20 minutes or 30 minutes together? So this is a relatively quick exercise, but we are going to work together to complete the JA launch lesson. In this activity, we're going to work to solve one of these two problems. So this is essentially a brainstorming and problem-solving exercise. It's going to require communication. It's going to require us to share some ideas pretty rapidly. So we're going to address one of these two questions, and I can come back to them momentarily. So how do you bridge the technology gap during this pandemic? And second, what can be done to manage food insecurities to help people meet their basic needs at this time? So one focused on technology gap due to the COVID pandemic, the second related to food insecurities. So we've got 30 minutes to get this done. First, we have to decide which of these problems you guys would like to solve. Then we have to get into the hard part, the how. What resources will we need to solve the problem? Kind of capital investment, what kind of money would it take to do this? Where would we get the money from? And then how would we pay back our investors? So interestingly, guys, it's kind of like an exercise in social entrepreneurship. So using entrepreneurial thinking to address a major societal challenge. The final deliverables, when we reconvene back into our main room, we're going to choose one representative to speak on behalf of the group. That representative will just get 2 minutes to kind of share out what we've discussed, what you guys came up with Angie's guidance. There'll be a poll used to vote for the best solution, and there's some prizes. So you guys can actually win a little a gift card, some prizes. So use Angie's expertise. She's here to support and guide. I'll stay with you guys throughout this process just to track time and answer any questions that come up. And then, of course, let's have fun. So let's start here. I'm going to leave this screen up. Angie, do you want to weigh in on these two questions or share any thoughts to help you guys make a decision?
Sorry, I want to move to a different room just so it's more quiet. Awesome. Yeah, so I think these two questions are super interesting. I think they've been questions that a lot of people have been asking since the pandemic started. So the first one with technology gaps, I'm sure even right now, right? Like without Zoom, I don't think any of us would know how to go to school, how to communicate, how to do work. I think that entire timing of having all this stuff available to us has been really critical. That being said, I think a lot of people also still don't have access to a lot of basic things, right? I think we're very fortunate to be able to kind of connect with each other digitally, but I think when you think about like elementary schools or even just your own school experience, I think it's still not the same as when you are there in person, and a lot of experiences are still very different. Some of it is because just technology cannot replicate what we have in person, but at the same time there might be some things there, some questions there as to how can we make kind of the digital experience even more engaging or more similar to how life was like pre-pandemic, right? Second question about food insecurity to help people meet their basic needs at this time. I'm sure you guys remember when the pandemic first started, like grocery stores were going crazy. It was super hard to even get some of the basic necessities. I know I'm very fortunate to have had a lot of access to those things, but I know a lot of people do not, or a lot of people maybe don't have the capabilities to go where they need to go to get these items. So definitely two very pressing problems that I think we've experienced during COVID. Doesn't mean this problem didn't exist pre-COVID. I think it just means that the pandemic has made it more obvious to us than before. So that's kind of my take on those two questions. I don't know if people have a preference as to which one they want to tackle or which one speaks to them a bit more in terms of how they relate to them.
Yeah, let's get some thoughts from our students in the room. And I know, guys, we're joining from all over the Bay Area and all over Northern California. We don't necessarily know one another. But if we can, if you're willing to share your screen, and thank you, Marley, Neil, Melissa, those who are sharing. The rest of you guys, if you'd like to join us with your screen, please do, or even just verbally. What do you guys think? We've got two options here, one related to a technology gap, one related to food insecurity. What are your initial thoughts?
I feel like the food insecurity one might be good because I think there's been issues in the Bay Area, or that I've heard, that some farms have had like overproduce and then it turns into food waste. So maybe a way we could find to recycle the food so that we can work with farmers or places that produce food and then cycle it back to the places that need it.
Yeah, really, really good point. I think there's a lot of distribution issues. A lot of factories were shut down earlier. So even though we had the food available, that food was not getting to places quick enough, right? And so it was going to waste. Yeah, definitely a very, very big problem. Really good point. And really good solution. Anyone else?
For me, it's very hard to choose between these two problems because they're so noticeable right now, and but I'm also leaning towards the food problem because I think it's something that doesn't only affect students, it also affects families, and so yeah, it might be more important.
Yeah, agreed. So I'm hearing a lot of food. Anyone else want to give their thoughts? Or should we go with the food insecurity question? Okay. I think we can go with unless someone has a very strong feeling towards a tech gap, we can go with the food insecurity question. This is actually very near and dear to my heart because I spent one of my college internships working for Feeding America. If you guys don't know, Feeding America is like the country's largest network of food banks. And so I spent the entire summer trying to figure out exactly this problem, but not pre-pandemic, but still a very big problem even now. So love this question. I think it's super important. So I'm glad you guys picked it. Cool. So I think Melissa gave a solution earlier about thinking about how to recycle a lot of food that is going to waste. I think that's a great place to start. Anyone else have any other kind of ideas about how to go about this issue? It's a big one, so there's no wrong answers.
Well, personally, hello.
Hi.
I live in a small town, and what a lot of people that live either here or just like get from bigger stores is people that aren't too afraid to go out and get food will bring it, and they'll do like drive-in where you give food that's either like either necessities or just like a meal for the day type of thing.
Yeah.
And they'll do that like either every day, or there's times where it's like every Tuesday, Friday, etc.
Nice. Okay, cool. So kind of like a community sort of effort to put food on the table for the rest of the people who might not be able to go. Really cool. Anyone else? Or anyone else want to echo one of the ideas you heard earlier? What about, let's think about, so I think two of our solutions, right, is tackling the distribution of food. One is tackling the issue of how do we get the food from the producers, right, whoever is making the food to the stores. Another solution is tackling how do we get the food from the stores to the people, right? And so I think we need both definitely to make this happen. Anyone want to either chip in on either of those kinds of ends or think of an idea that maybe can combine the two? or make that entire process easier. Any thoughts? Have you guys seen, do you guys have like farmers markets near you? Markets or situations where you don't have to go to a store, or the farmer doesn't have to go to a store, right? A lot of times it's that intermediate person that can add an extra step that might be a bit complicated. But you have like these farmers markets where you can go directly, right, and pick up your stuff. That way it takes the food off of the farmer's hands, the producer's hands, and then you get the food directly, right? So I think that is kind of something that in the past was really popular, kind of died down, but I think recently has kind of gone back up again with people who care a little bit more about knowing where their food is coming from. But I think there's also issues with that, right? Because going to a farmer's market, you have to have contact with those people. And during COVID, that's been very hard. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. So there's an issue there. What do you guys think? Anyone have any thoughts on like recent solutions to this? So for example, Instacart, getting other people to get your groceries for you and deliver them to your door, Amazon Fresh. Anyone want to talk about those current solutions and what issues you see with them, or what's good about those solutions?
Just to kind of add on, I've definitely noticed there's been like a huge increase in delivery services like food, also, you know, online shopping, whatever it is, there's like a big increase. And I think slowly, you know, these delivery services are going to kind of take over. And, you know, a lot of people now with COVID are like scared to go into the stores, or they don't have farmers markets near them, or, you know, it's just not a good situation. So I have noticed a big increase.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really sure about the solution, but I feel like that could be part of it, from what I've seen.
Very cool.
Well, hey, Angie, do you mind if I share my screen again to revisit the deliverables there?
Go for it.
Because as you guys are thinking about, man, how would we actually structure this solution? These are the categories that we're going to need to speak, or you'll need to speak on in 14 minutes when we present to the rest of our group. So obviously we've addressed this the first bullet point. There's a typo here. Say, what resources would you need to solve the problem?
Yeah, so, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if it's considered a resource, but I feel like a steady relationship with one of the producers of the food. So it could be like a big farm that we team up with. I feel like that's what would really kind of make it possible, because if we have a relationship with them, then we can talk to them about how much food, like a year, for example, do they overproduce or do they have to throw away because maybe you know, it came out, you know how they throw away food sometimes because it didn't come out looking right, or yeah, there's like certain standards that kind of disqualify certain food. So maybe team up with them, build a relationship with them to get that food to us so we can get it to the people who have like food insecurity issues, and then probably build a relationship with you know, one of the like Instacart people or the middlemen that get the food to the people for those who are at risk of COVID. So those two relationships probably, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. I think super relevant. In any business that you conduct and any issue you address, one of the biggest resources is relationships, right? Not just money or the supplies, but actually having the people who have what you need or you have what they need, and trying to kind of like plug those holes. So really, really great point. Yeah, definitely you need relationships with the suppliers. You bring up a good point about the ugly fruits and vegetables. I think there's even a company out there called like ugly produce or something, because what they do is they take all the stuff that doesn't look good, right, and they sell it to people because it's still good food. Really great. Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Any other people want to talk about what other resources you guys see? What would we need in order to get this food to people, get the good amount of food to people? Any thoughts?
Also, I think in addition to, let's say, for example, we already have the produce and the people that take it, maybe an app that we can create so that we know who needs to go, who needs stuff and what type. For example, there's some people that maybe already have a garden and don't need vegetables but need necessities, like other types, boxed, or I don't know what other things people would need.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Like, let's not just focus on the things that we grow, but also just like things that you can't reproduce, right? So we might be able to have relationships with like the produce planters and the farmers for the vegetables, but what about like the pasta and the rice and those things, right? Those are also really important that we can't just necessarily grow in our backyard. And so really, really good. Awesome. Do we want to move on to the next question? Maybe.
Yeah, and Angie, I'm going to be your ticking clock, your time reminder. 10 minutes, and we have to identify one student to speak on behalf of the group, and then to hopefully in 2 minutes answer as many of these bullets as possible.
Sure. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. So with this kind of idea, let's kind of group these two questions together. How much money do you guys think it'll take, and where will that money come from? What do you guys think in terms of building something like this, building relationships like this, and then also like where will we get that money to pay these things?
One idea, like for employees, they could be volunteers, like high school students. Community service hours could be met, and then we're not paying. We aren't like spending a ton of money on employees. It's kind of just nonprofit volunteer work to help people who have these food insecurities.
Yeah, awesome point. Really, really good. I think that's definitely a way to go about it. Anyone else have other ideas?
Local sponsors.
Local sponsors. Who are you thinking of getting to sponsor you? What kind of I guess institutions or groups are you thinking of getting to sponsor you?
Well, I think like specifically just first of all the people that like the extra food, like Melissa was saying, the ones that those for the produce, but then also for people that are looking to help. There's a couple of programs, especially where I live. It's called like Rotary or S Club, where they want to give the community money. They like want to spend money on you to help out. So just asking and reaching out maybe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just even reaching out, right? I think the stuff when you talk about it being for a good cause, when you talk about it for being for a community, a lot of people are willing to financially support you. So definitely think that's also a really good point to make. Cool. And then I guess just kind of want to segue into the last question, which is also about financials, but how will you pay back these people? So I guess this goes back to a bigger question of how are you going to make money through this business, right? Whether this business is for profit, and what that means is like you're making money for yourself versus nonprofit where you're trying to just kind of use the money to fund the business, but you're not necessarily trying to make it $1 million business or anything. You need money in order for this to survive. And so part of that survival is also paying back the money that you've borrowed or that you've had invested in you through other people. So in terms of this idea that we have of connecting different people so that they can get their produce in a good amount of time, where are you charging people? Where do you think would make sense for you to ask people to pay? Would it be the people receiving the groceries? Would it be the people providing the groceries? Would it be both of them? Would it be someone else unrelated entirely? What are you guys thinking?
I think possibly the producer or the farm that is overproducing, we could kind of charge us taking the food as a service, because I know a lot of farms, they if somebody finds out that they are throwing away a lot of food, it's kind of bad image.
Yeah.
And like companies like that tend to get more business if they're able to put on their packaging like, oh, we're eco-friendly, or we help people out by working with this company and giving them our food or paying them to take our food. I've heard that a lot of fashion businesses do that. There's a business that takes scraps and then the companies actually pay them to take their scraps. So we do something like that.
Cool. Yeah, really great idea. So asking the people, kind of taking their produce as a service and charging them for that, I think makes a lot of sense. Anyone want to either advocate or talk about why they think we should or shouldn't ask the people receiving the food to pay or not pay? What are our thoughts there?
I feel like there are a lot of people who can't really afford to pay for food and or pay for basic necessities in their home. A lot of people have trouble choosing between a house and food. So I feel like there we shouldn't charge the people who are receiving the food, just because there are some people who really can't choose between rent and food.
Right. Good point. Yep. So
I agree.
Go for it.
I was just going to say I agree with Alex. And yeah, I completely agree. And I think it should be nonprofit and just designed to help people.
Good. Awesome. So hopefully this also kind of gets across the idea that like in a business, right, you're not always just charging the person at the end of the line, right? So a lot of times I think with stores you see, oh, like I'm the customer, I'm the receiver of this good, I have to pay for it, right? Or that's the person that pays for it. And that's not always the case with a lot of businesses, especially nowadays, just with the way that like people connect and with the way that businesses run. It's not always the person who's receiving the good that needs to pay. And a lot of times they can't pay and we shouldn't ask that of them, right? So I think you guys all make a really good point that like with something like this, I think there's a need for food on one side and there is a need to get rid of extra food on the other side. And so maybe one party can afford to pay for it more than the other. Cool. So I think we have kind of a good idea of what this business looks like and what the model is. Maybe we should spend the last few minutes trying to see who wants to be our spokesperson and then hash out kind of like that 2-minute presentation so we can see what that looks like. Any volunteers as to who wants to speak? Melissa? Yeah? Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So Melissa will be our spokesperson. Maybe I think it'd be helpful if each of us if we just go through each of these problems one more time, maybe, and Melissa, you can kind of get a good short summary as to how to do your 2-minute thing. So first off, the problem we're solving, food insecurity, right? How are we solving it? Anyone want to kind of summarize how we're solving this problem in like 1 to 2 sentences?
Getting the extra produce, having teenagers help run errands, also maybe gaining community service hours, also, and we would be getting our funds from the people giving us the produce, because they would probably be getting some sort of good out of it, like Melissa was saying, in their packaging, and we get our investors from locals that are willing to donate money, I guess you can say.
Yeah, really great. Awesome. Thanks so much. Andrea, I think you summarized all of that really well. I think that's kind of like the core of the idea, right? The core of the business. Anyone else have anything else they want to add? Melissa, also, if you have questions as to which one of these questions you don't have a clear answer to just yet, feel free to also chime in.
I have an idea about how to get more.
Sure.
There's we have 2 groups that we're providing for, like the people with food insecurity because they're at risk of COVID, but maybe they can pay for their own food or they have the money to. And then we've got the other group that they can't pay. So what if we charge the people who can pay for it, but they just need our service because they're at risk of COVID, and that leaves us with that money so that we can provide like free food for the people.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So maybe thinking of a model where you have kind of different tiers, right? And how you qualify for that tier will be dependent on your financial situation, everything else. I think that's definitely a really interesting model. I think a lot of people try to do that, hoping that obviously that people won't take advantage of it and try to be on one tier over the other. And so I think it's great. I think if that's a situation where you can get kind of people to help each other out, right, and chime in and chip in when they can, I think that's a great way to try to offset a lot of the financial burdens. Any other final comments? I think we have like a minute or two left.
Maybe like additionally for paying for the services, there should be like an option to like further donate towards the cause. Since we are catering to two groups of people, we should be able to have one group of people help the other through our business.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Especially because this company is doing something that is good, right? For the community, and it's good for different people. I think it makes a lot of sense to ask people to chime in and chip in, maybe with extra donations or things. I think it's a really great idea. Awesome. I think breakout rooms are about to close, but really great discussion. Thank you guys for participating. I think this is a really great idea, and I'm excited to see that final presentation.
Great job, guys. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, of course.
And look forward to
Thank
seeing
you,
you
guys.
sharing for us, Melissa. Awesome work. So we can head back to the main room, guys.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you guys join me. My name is Stephen Kwong. I'm the co-founder of a company called Curacubbie. We're a software company that provides a lot of automation, workflow, and administrative processing for schools. I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I'm an immigrant. I grew up in Oakland, California, went to Oakland High School. And at the age of 12, I started a DJ business. And yeah, and at the age of 16, I started a record company. I started producing music, and then I sold that business and put myself through school. So I attended community college at the College of Alameda. And then I used that money to put myself through college. So I ended up attending UC Berkeley. I graduated from UC Berkeley. This was way back in the days. I'm a dinosaur. This is during the dot-com boom. Google wasn't even out yet. So I joined a recruiting company at that point, and I did really well. After the first year, I started my own recruiting company. So that's my third business. And if you guys remember anything about history of the Silicon Valley, there was a big dot-com boom, and there was also a big dot-com bust when everything kind of went down. And I was involved and impacted by that as well. So during that time, I made a pivot into fitness. So I actually opened a fitness company and kept that business around for about 15 years. I recently sold it. And the reason why was because I have a son. He's 13 now. When he was 3, he was diagnosed with autism, and we spent a lot of time focusing on his needs. And we actually founded a small school for children with special needs, and we serviced that school. And as a parent co-founder, we were encountering a lot of problems with the administrative side of running a school. So we decided to build our own software to service that. So fast forward 5 years, here we are now. We are a company that services over 500 schools in 18 states, including early education, universities, as well as school districts. So that's sort of my 2-minute elevator pitch of myself, and happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
I have a question.
Yes, and what is your name?
Jelani.
Jelani, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I really liked listening about your story. Like your pivots to different types of like regions of business was really interesting. And then it seems like you fulfilled all of these different types of ideas and just went towards it. Was there like a certain indicator that made you want to pivot? Was it hard to transition in different types of scenarios, or?
First of all, thank you for that question. That's an excellent question. And I want to answer that by going a little bit kind of backwards in time. So when we first immigrated to this country, I was 3 years old. So I'm ethnically Chinese, but my 2 generations of my family were in Vietnam. So they migrated to Vietnam to do business. And after the war, we had, it was a lot of turmoil. So we immigrated to the US. And I remember us just kind of being like, not really fitting in 100%. And then like our family was on welfare. So at a really young age, I felt like a need to want to be able to help my family and to contribute. So that passion and that energy was instilled in me early on. So it was almost at every level of the pivots, there was more of a necessity to pivot. So like, even like at 12, the reason why I wanted to become a DJ was because, I was a Chinese kid growing up in Oakland, California. Most of my friends were Black, and like, this is during like the golden age of hip hop. And I was like, I can't rap, but I can learn how to scratch. So that's what I did. And I loved it. And it just helped me assimilate. And so every single pivot was more along the ways of like, something happened in my life and there was a closing of one door, but that also led me to feel like, well, this is just one chapter. There's got to be the next chapter. And I'll be honest with you, none of it was smooth. All of those transitions were actually really, really rough. And each time I learned something, which is there's always going to be a way. You just have to believe that the universe is good. I hope that's helpful. I see a few other folks on here. I'm an open book, guys. Any questions you may have, like, I'll answer anything. I've done a lot of things, a lot of different things. So we have someone in chat. Where I have to go back to school, but this is so much fun. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. What did you do to get into UC Berkeley, and what course did you take? Okay, great question. So I graduated Oakland High School, and I was actually not accepted into UC Berkeley. I was accepted into UC Santa Barbara. But at that point, I was actually too scared to like go down south. It was just too much of it was too much of an experience for me. So I decided to take a route. I'm not sure if this is still available. At the time, there was a program called CAP, the Cooperative Admissions Program. It was a collaboration between the local community colleges and the UC system. Basically, the mandate was this: if you go to community college and you graduate with a minimum of a 3.0 GPA, then you're pretty much guaranteed admissions to the UC of your choice. So I took that route. And I said, that's a pretty good deal, because a 3.0, I mean, it's doable, right? So I took that route, and I majored in mass communications at UC Berkeley. I don't believe that major is around anymore. They might have changed it to media studies, but it was more of it was in the College of Letters and Science, and it was more of a what I would consider integral, intermediary kind of coursework, where I took like history, social sciences, music, journalism. It was really, really fun. And I'm also, I want to say this, I'm also not like a prototypical Silicon Valley startup founder. Like, I didn't graduate from like the computer science major or the business major. I went through letters and science, liberal arts. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
I have another question.
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
Regarding your most recent startup, was it a technology-based business to help? Can you talk a little bit more about it, like your process, what its mission is, and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great questions, by the way. Amazing questions. Which school do you go to?
I go to El Camino in the Bay Area.
El Camino, is that in the South Bay, or where is that?
South San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. All right, fantastic. I would love for you to intern for us one day, by the way. You have great energy. Seriously.
Yeah, because when you had talked about it, and regarding your child with autism, like I've always wanted, like for the past 5 years, I've gotten really interested in STEM, so like specifically neuroscience and cognitive therapy for autism and schizophrenia and things like that, because I grew up like in my elementary school, there was a special class for kids who were suffering from autism and giving them that support. And then I didn't understand why it was so separated. No one in my class really understood how they're helping them. And so I kind of got like a few other friends of mine to see how we can help mentor them and just help them around the school and just be a friendly face that they can come to. And then it started growing, and then we had people that were partners with them. So I kind of grew up with them, and I kind of understood like their behavior, how like their personalities, and it was so good to actually communicate with them and just observe and help them any way I can. So when you said that, I automatically like took my attention. But what you're doing is amazing. I really like what you're doing, and it's just a really good mission. But sorry, back to my question.
No, that's incredible. I love hearing about your journey. So there's two things that I'm gonna offer you. The first thing is that at some point I'm going to talk to you about an internship, because I think you would love that. But the second thing too is that we've actually grown our school. It started off in one room of a church with 4 families. Now it's a full NPS school with 60 families. And at some point, I would like to introduce you to the director of the school, so you can make contact. And if you wanted to do a tour and a visit, you can see like the programs that they're developing for all these kids that are on the spectrum. So that's 2 things I'll do for you.
Thank you so much.
So to answer your question, I'll give you the use case. So imagine that there are all types of educational organizations in the country. There are school districts, there are private schools, there are in-home daycares or after-school programs. And if you can imagine that as technology evolved, it was very difficult for these organizations to catch up to technology, right? Because, we're not talking about like the gaming industry or like e-commerce or like, buying something with Venmo. Like most of the users or the administrators in these organizations, they're more focused on the children and the education. They're not necessarily on Google searching for the latest technology, right? So they've kind of been left behind, right? So think about from the perspective of information. Like most of these organizations still have to like open up a spreadsheet, type in their data, email that spreadsheet to another person to interpret that data, and then like make some changes on that spreadsheet, email it back, and then somehow they need to communicate with the families and the parents. They have to like email that back to the families as well. That's just one micro example. I mean, that's super tedious, super tedious, right? So I'm sure that even based on what I told you, you're probably thinking in your head, well, how come they just don't use a collaborative tool like, like Google Docs can just solve all that? Well, there's 2 things that we're helping solve. One is to bring thought leadership to that process, to bring thought leadership to the way things have been done in the past to improve legacy processes. And the second thing that we're doing is actually providing the technology so that they can implement some of these changes with relative ease. So that's the core mission of our company. Our mission is to make technology easier for schools of all sizes so that the staff can focus on the children and not have to focus on all of the mundane work that they have to do in the office.
How long did that take to kind of like process and build over time? And did you have to like network to other people to get assistance, or did you just do this like with a small group?
That's another great question. So I don't have a technical background. I don't code. I don't do any of that sort of thing. But I was intimately involved in experiencing the pain of doing all those things. And remember, I told you earlier that I actually owned a fitness business. And fortunately, from that fitness business, we had a lot of clients that were actually software engineers and coders and architects. So I became really good friends with one of my clients. And I just approached him one day and said, hey, we have this problem at our school. We can't accept Venmo. Like, we can't take digital payments. Parents are still writing checks. Can you help us build an app to solve this problem? And then ironically, he said, oh my gosh, I have a 3-year-old daughter at a preschool and I'm doing the same thing. They're literally taking a piece of paper and putting it in the cubby, and I'm supposed to take this piece of paper and stick cash back in their cubby to pay them. And he said, this may be a bigger problem than you think. So we started looking at the market. It was actually a huge problem. This is a $200 billion problem in the market. It's huge. And so we built a beta app for the school. And then, interestingly enough, other schools in the area kind of found out about it. They're like, hey, we're interested. Like this Montessori school in Kensington was actually interested, and we let them beta test it as well. And the feedback that we got were like, oh my gosh, you guys have eliminated 20 hours of work from our staff. Just because parents don't have to write checks and we don't have to manually send them email receipts, everything's done through the app, right? So that's how it started. And then I was a sole salesperson. So I literally picked up the phone and started calling schools one by one. I was really proud when we had 10 customers, and then we went to 100 customers. And by that time, we were fortunate enough to, we qualified to an incubator. So there was a technology incubator in San Francisco, or in San Mateo, by the name of Yodlee. They're what's considered a financial API fintech product, and they make connections to different banks. So if you guys access your bank on your phone, you're likely using Yodlee's technology in the back end to access those banks. And we had a thesis. Our thesis is that, why aren't schools leveraging digital payments more often, right? And the answer is that it's really expensive. It's really expensive. Schools typically lose anywhere from 3 to 5% of their revenue if they use digital payments, and they can't afford that. So
they're just kicking us out of the rooms. You just cut them off.
Hi, Devin.
Hey, how you doing?
Sorry about that, students. I know Steven was right in the middle of one of his thoughts.
It happened to me as well in the last one. So
I tried to send him a message, but Jelani, those are great questions. Definitely make sure you connect with Steven after. I won't cut into any of Devin's time. Thank you very much, Devin, for speaking with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Definitely. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How about you?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you guys for coming. I wanted to in the last breakout session, I kind of wanted to give some context around talking about when I started, right? Because I started my business in high school, and one of the things that I brought up in terms of when we started was just being able to have the confidence utilizing and moving.
Welcome back, students. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found your breakout rooms to be meaningful and that you were able to ask some great questions to our entrepreneurs that were here today. At this time, we're going to ask a representative from each of the breakout rooms to share what they learned in their launch lesson and to present to the group. And we'll do a poll at the end, and the winning team will receive gift cards from Junior Achievement. So if somebody from Team Moses can start, you have 1 to 2 minutes to take it away.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and my group, we decided to address the problem of food insecurity. So we're going to address it by creating a service where farms pay us to take their ugly foods and excess produce. Resources we will need will be relationships with food producers, which will be the farms, and relationships with politicians and charitable organizations who can possibly sponsor us. We will create an app to track who needs food and how much food they need. We will also create a model where our service provides for people who have food insecurity due to COVID reasons, but they can financially provide for themselves. And we will also identify who has food insecurity because they cannot financially provide for themselves. That way, we can see who we will charge, which will be the people who have financial security, so that we can provide free resources to the people who cannot pay for it. We will also provide an option on the app for people who can pay for themselves to donate to the company to provide for the people who can't pay. And we will also find local investors to help support us and give us money.
Great, thank you. Representative from Team 2, Team Cuban.
Oh, so our group was saying, so we chose question 2, which was how we would get the resources. And the first one we came up with, the first solution was to ask for donations, of course, from like setting up a spot and then asking people to donate so we can give to other people who will also need it. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
And the other one was we can set up like a garden, like multiple people can make gardens and we can grow them, and we can even make a website showing step by step how to cultivate that garden. And if they can't, then maybe show them spots where they could go and receive items from a garden. And we would get the resources such as water, seeds, and soil from locals, and we would then repay them by either selling 10% of the items and slowly paying them back, or by tax returns, like they can take it away.
Nice job. Team 3, Team Case.
Hi, my name is Ashley. So for my group, we decided to answer the first question, and we decided to make a program that would distribute computers and Wi-Fi boxes throughout rural and other city areas that maybe don't have the necessities to provide for schooling online. The money that it would take to make this actually happen or to start it up would be around $230. And we decided to get our monies from donors rather than investors because we know that our company isn't really a for-profit company. We're more of a nonprofit. So we would want to get money from people who don't really expect anything back, and to show people that our products are working and that we're distributing them for the right reason, we will display surveys and maybe even documentaries to show how our products work and how well they are working. Our surveys can provide us with information that proves that our products are going to the right reasons, as well as data with how well they're working with each families. And over time, we're looking to distribute it to countries outside of the US that might not be accessible to this, because I know in other countries like Indonesia, I know my cousins aren't accessible to online teaching, so they do it over school. So if it works, we're looking to spread it maybe all over the world.
Great, thank you. Team Bale, Group 4.
So hi, my name is Kwan. So our team choosing the managing food insecurities. So how we gonna get, like, how we getting those food to those who need it? Like, we will have a website or service that will mail the food certificates or coupons, like, to people home, and then we partnership with grocery store and school, and we need a marketing plan, which is we like how we advertise to people. Like, we can do that through social media app like Facebook or Instagram, and we can have people can contact us, like, if which location they need foods, and they can contact us, and we can deliver food to their organization or charity centers, especially during COVID-19. And we have something we have to do is we have to contact with local grocery stores or farmer markets for food donation, and restaurant who can donate food. And as I had said earlier, we have to partnering with schools to get the student volunteers also. And how do we get the money? We'll get the money from the partner with the local nonprofit foundations and charity centers, or we can have fundraiser events, grant funds, and we'll also work with the city infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Team Sedaris, Group 5.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucas, and our group plans to solve the problem of tech gaps during coronavirus. We plan to solve this problem by creating a business that hires instructors and people that are experienced with computer rebuilding and take e-waste, teach kids how to build computers out of the e-waste to give them functional computers. We'll probably need about $10,000 per state to be able to do something like that, or more of a unknown amount depending on how large we want our business to be. The money will likely come from funding for the school system, as schools aren't using as much funding for classes because there's no extracurricular activities. And we plan to pay back the investors by giving the functional computers to the schools when they are no longer needed, and to give them functional students that will help society grow.
Great, thank you so much. And last but not least, Team Crane, Group 6.
Hi, my name is Alan. So we decided to tackle the first question about the technology, and we decided to take on about how the network speed is and how people are dropping off and on of Zoom. So we created like a deal where that we would ask big companies like Cisco or AT&T or some of those big software companies or internet providers, and our deal is that we would need, say, $300 million for this, like for California, for kids or students that are in the K through 8, and they're about like 4.5 million, a rough estimate, about 4.5 million that will need this service or product, and about 3 million houses. So came across a number of $300 million for the products. And our problems was that the internet is very slow. So we needed to upgrade their technology, and some of the say the distribution would be through school districts, because teachers are the ones firsthand they firsthand known like who is dropping in and out of the Zoom and who really needs this service. So their distribution method would be through the school districts and the teachers. The benefits for the company will that it would create big publicity for them, a good publicity, and create customer loyalty. And also it would help, they can also implement programs into the school district by training their future workforce to come work for their company. And train more employees that are more on hands with technology and can just create better technology. And yeah, that is our solution.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, at this time, we're going to have a poll. So if you can go ahead and vote, you should see the poll on your screen. We do have a survey at the end, so please stay till the end to take the survey in case you're the lucky winner of the Apple AirPods. And the link will also be in the chat box if you can't scan the QR code. I think we're ready for Christine's close now.
Wow, what a great way to kick off National. Wow, what a great way to kick off National Entrepreneurship Month. My name is Christine Burr, and I'm the president and CEO of Junior Achievement of Northern California. Our mission to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in a global economy has never been more important or relevant than it is right now. Whether or not we've inspired you to become an entrepreneur and start your own business, or apply the spirit of entrepreneurship to whatever job or career you settle on, today is a win for you. I can tell you that at the very least, having an entrepreneurial mindset can set you on a path to success in any role you take on. So I hope you were inspired to lean in and adopt some of the advice and inspiration you've received today. So before we say goodbye, I'd like to thank our amazing moderator, Diana Kapp, our fantastic entrepreneurs, Devin Lars, Stephen Kwong, Robin Sue Fisher, Samantha John, Ben Davis, and Sahar Saidi. Thank you to our McKinsey volunteers and to our sponsors, BPM, McKinsey & Company, CNA, PG&E, True Capital Management, Alliance Global Investments, and the Alliance of the CEOs. We couldn't have done it without you. And finally, thank you to my JA staff for putting together such an impactful event. At Junior Achievement, our work of inspiring tomorrows is so rewarding, especially when we hear back from our students. So please take a moment to complete the survey for a chance to win a pair of Apple AirPods. We have so many more virtual learning experiences like this scheduled for throughout the school year, so please visit our website at janorcal.org and sign up. And again, thank you for being here today. We're so glad you came.